Everything is borked. Everything is borked when you bork everything. All right. I really hope it continues the same event. Hey, man of a thousand jujitsu. I keep wanting to say yours is jujitsu for some reason. How's it going? How's everything out? How's life? Yeah, I know that. I tried to add an audio source, and OBS decided to die. So instead of going in the studio mode and doing it, I'm going to switch to audio, and then actually do it from here with the black screen. So let's try this. So if I do that, there's Discord. There we go. Go back here. All right. Now, whenever Wampus talks, you should be able to hear him. In theory. It's all just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. Oh. Oh, boy. Funny thing is, I can see him doing stuff on his stream. we're, we're, we're jerry-rigging this as we go. Oh, goodness. What is this? Oh, yeah, there we go. I found you via Cameron's video editing live streams and binging your tutorial. Oh, thanks for checking them out. Appreciate it. Welcome. Yeah, we're going to, once Wampus gets all this stuff together, I get my stuff together, we're actually going to go full on into the color stuff. Just so, for those of you that are just walking in and stuff, just from prerequisites here. So this is part 2 of our color grading sessions. We're going to do our best to make sure that, like, you don't necessarily have to watch the first session in order to follow along what we're doing today, but it will help a lot because the first one talked a lot about the color management and the color science of things and how all that stuff works. So having that knowledge definitely will help today, but I'll do my best to, like, I'll do a recap first when we actually get into it. And then just so we have like a good baseline understanding of where we're at. And then once we do the recap, then we'll actually go into, basically, we're going to talk about practical workflows and how you can approach an image and say, like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do this image, and then how to set up node trees to cater to your specific workflow, because everybody has their, like, this is the best node tree, but really in reality it's just whatever works best for your workflow. So we're going to talk about how to actually create one that best caters to your workflow. And then we're going to talk about, well, there's also different types of nodes and different types of workflows. So we're going to talk a lot about that and basically how to grade your image, but also do it fast and accurate. So that's the goal of today. So Wampus he's another Resolve YouTuber, buddy of mine, and he and I do some stuff. So we're both simultaneously streaming this to both Twitch and YouTube. So you can watch this on my Twitch, his Twitch, my YouTube, his YouTube, whatever works. So that's what's happening today. And yeah, hopefully once we actually kick things into gear, we can make the stuff work. The only resolver I know is oh my goodness, calm down. You can just be calm. Okay. All right, color session 2. And then I'm going to make sure I have all my stuff imported as well, because that would be bad if I didn't. Whoa. Do you have any audio tutorials on the channel by any chance, specifically sound over microphone and OBS so it doesn't sound like poop? Oddly enough, the funny thing is I just did a mic review. But I normally try to stay away from audio related tutorials. I know the basics of, like, I know enough to be dangerous, but there are definitely people that know a lot more about what they're doing. Like, I could do basic tutorials. Yeah, I might do that in the future, but I have so many other tutorials I want to do that are lined up that that's not necessarily on the priority list. But, you know, the idea is that you don't peak your mic when you talk into it, and then use good compression EQ, maybe a little noise reduction, and not the standard noise suppression that comes in OBS because it's absolute garbage. So yeah, I think he's doing the walkthrough right now. which I actually kind of wish he was saying on this stream as well. But basically, so for this session, we actually have files that are you can actually follow along with this. So if you want to follow along on Wampus's stream, he'll have the link to the sample clips that we're going to use that I got. And it's like a healthy mixture of like here's some here's a couple of multicam clips. Here's actually I don't think I did the raw ones. I think it's just the multicam clips and a couple of sorted ones. But yeah. Just some good practice clips. So if you want to download those to follow along, you can go over to his channel and grab the download link. If I wasn't worried, I'd totally follow along. Well, good thing we're recording this. Well, we're keeping the VODs basically, and all of the everything that goes wrong, because everything will go wrong. Okay, now I just have to find both of those things and then import them. So some of them were here, I believe. Yes. So this was those. And I'm not even going to care about organizing this stuff because I don't. Oh yeah, these are like the pre-Rec 709 ones, but then this one's like a straight F-log. Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. And then I need to grab the clip from him. Sharuk! Hello. Welcome in. Here to learn? Here to learn a little stuff. All right, let's download this. Continue with download only. Oh my goodness, this file's so big. Okay. I learned about filters on OBS, which were really cool. Yeah, filters are great. Yeah, there's like basically you can use any of the like VSD filters work in OBS just perfectly fine, which is awesome. So I just use the same ones I use in Resolve for OBS. He's doing something over there, but I can't hear him. It's funny because I actually have his screen pulled up over here, not just his stream, but his screen. If Enforcer Music, how's it going? How's everything? I was life. Welcome in. Did you ever watch that video I sent? How long ago was this? I think I remember you sending me something. I do remember watching something. Oh, the power grade one? Did I watch this? I can't remember if I watched this or not.
Yeah,
Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Gotcha. Do you want to share? Do you want to share the Twitch chat again, or not really?
Oh, do you want like? Are you? Do you
the
want
stream together thing?
The stream together thing. Oh, yes, yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Okay, I will send you an invite.
Yeah, the shared chats are great. I love that last time.
Yeah. Okay. Shared chat. Start. Wait. Invite. Reasons.
Yeah, I think Sharuk, I do think I watched that. I remember seeing like this is a lot. I mean, not really, but you know.
Okay, I think I invited you.
I think you invited me.
I think so. Also, I don't think your link worked for me. Your video link.
Did it not?
It says.
Look at my screen.
Let me try entering it again.
Okay. Are you putting it in as a doc? Oh, wait. Are you putting it as a source or a doc?
Source.
Okay. And you're just using the browser source?
Yes.
Okay. It should work. Okay.
But it's not, though. But here's the thing. It's
Well,
not.
well, you know what?
But here's the thing, though. It's not.
It could though.
But here's the best part. Not.
It's not.
But here's the thing, though.
Oh boy. Oh, did we want to do like different audio track stuff for recording too, or no?
I didn't
completely forgot about that, but
even bother.
whatever. Okay. We'll just keep it as is. It'll be fine.
It's fine. It's all fine.
It's all fine and games until someone loses an audio track.
Custom. Okay. Apply. Yeah, dude, your thing is busted. You need to fix your thing. Fix the thing, man.
All right, I'll fix it. Hold on.
It's busted.
Oh, wait. Why did it... Hold on. Do that one. Why did it put the push tag on it? That was weird. Oh, okay. I see. That one, okay. That one will for sure work. I
think we are officially sharing chats now.
Great. It
says you're not live?
What if I thought? What? It says I'm not live. I should be live.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about all that.
Oh yeah, NVIDIA broadcast using for noise reduction is yeah. It's a bit of a pain. I've experienced those same issues for sure. That's yeah. Okay, it says share chat is on my end.
Okay. There we go. Now I got your screen. All right, 1 sec.
Sharing chat. Okay, so J-Bell. Is J-Bell in your chat or mine?
He's in mine.
Oh, okay, he's well, there you go. Then it works. It shows up my marine stream chat. Perfect. Awesome.
He's my very special chatter. J-Bell is the king of positivity.
He is so special.
All right, I have your POV.
All right. Oh yeah, let me just copy or cut your thing into the project I'm working on. Just go through all of my personal YouTube files. Sure, it's great. All right, awesome. Just keep watching. Watch really good. Okay.
No, listen. I'm hiding all the deets, all that little folder you had right there. I made sure we didn't see it.
I look pretty alive to me. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm alive. Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate it. You're
all
great.
Right. Well, whenever you're ready to kick off the super workshop, go ahead.
It's not I will say that the super workshop.
It's a very super workshop today.
Okay. I gotcha.
I know you're gonna kind of do like a little recap of some of the things that we talked about last time. I don't know if this was a part of it or not, but I had somebody ask if you could go over like just your preferences as well, real quick, and like the project settings as well.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect.
All right. So, okay. It's like I slated it, but we've already started. So, anyways, I actually don't know if the clap came through because of my noise reduction, but maybe it came through. I don't know. Anyways, that's the official start. Here we go. We're actually doing this now. So we have the color session. Here we are. All right. So just to recap for anybody, I said this in my chat, but just for Wampus' chat as well. So if you haven't seen the first session, we're going to try our best to make sure it's not super necessary to watch in order to understand every part of the process that we're doing here. It will help because we're going to use some concepts from it. But what I'm going to do is go over a quick recap here and definitely go and watch the first session if you can. But if you do have any questions on any of the stuff that was from that first session that we're doing in here, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to explain it as quick as I can. So with that said, The recap involves, I'm just going to go to this clip here. So the first session talked a lot about color management and being able to take your footage, like let's say this footage, because it was shot in a log space, we're taking it from what the camera saw and turning it into something that the display can show. That is the whole entire point of what color management does. If you were to just boil color management into a sentence, that would be it. And that can come in the form of using like color space transforms, LUTs, DCTLs, or anything like that. So with that out of the way.
Before you go into it, just for anybody who's unfamiliar with you and my stream, do you mind doing just a quick intro on you, yourself, and you?
That's right. Yeah, because there's people that don't know either of us. That's that's funny. All right. Okay, so yes, I'm Camera Tim. I have been a cinematographer and video editor for the past 14-ish years, over 14 years, I would say. So doing anything from like narratives, documentary style, live events, corporate, commercial, you name it. And then I also do YouTube, of course, doing a lot of different DaVinci Resolve and sometimes OBS tutorials. And that kind of sums me up in a nutshell. So yeah. And then Wampus, introduce yourself for my stream, I guess. Unless you muted yourself again. Did he mute
I was being a smartass anyways, so it doesn't matter. I don't have any professional experience.
Great introduction. And that's
so this is why this is so helpful for me. So I am I think a majority of people in the stream, self-taught, homegrown, YouTube University. I have been editing for a while in the YouTube space, so I'm fairly comfortable inside DaVinci Resolve itself, but specifically when it comes to the color page, the things that I don't understand are is this good? Why is it good? How to make it good? So that's what I'm really hoping to learn from the guru himself.
All right. So that's the introductions. Hopefully that was good for all of you. For those of you that I haven't said hi to yet, hello, how's it going? How's everything? How's life? Welcome in. All right. So now with the whole color management aspect of it, a couple of people were asking about the project settings. So in preferences, there's not really a whole lot that goes into how this manages color. The only thing I usually recommend is just making sure you manually set everything in terms of your GPU process and your decodes. But yeah, just try and maximize everything the best you can, unless of course you run into memory issues. But that's basically the preferences in a nutshell. The real important part actually comes from when you go to File and then Project Settings and then Color Management. So there's a couple things that you have here. If you do use LUTs, a lot of times DaVinci Resolve will actually default in this to trilinear. You actually want this to be set to tetrahedral. That will make your LUTs that you use actually a little bit more clean and accurate. So yeah. And then is Holy MS talking about my audio or yours?
It's is unstable. His audio is very unstable.
Okay. Well,
it's probably yours. The color grading expert, Tim.
The color okay, mine is unstable. Okay. Do you need me to send you direct audio?
I think it comes through fine for me.
Oh, hold on. It's because of Discord. I know why.
Is Discord doing something weird?
Yeah, Discord's just doing the stupid stuff. Hold on.
When I talk, he gets okay. Guys, so I have a ducker on the other sources so that when I speak, things get a little quieter. I can turn off the ducker for when Tim is talking.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
That's probably why.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah. So if you want to hear good audio, come to my channel. Just kidding. Okay. Anyways, so on the color management, going back to the color management tab, there are two ways that people work color manage in terms of, well, technically three if you count ASUS, but that's basically working color manage just in a different pipeline. So anyways, there's project-based color management, which is when you set this color science to DaVinci YRGB color managed right here. Let's see if I can zoom in, actually. Is it going to allow you to do that this time? Is it going to work? Are you going to work for me? No, you will not. Thanks, keyboard. I appreciate you. All right, so hopefully you can see it. I'll try and explain it the best. But color manage basically means that DaVinci Resolve is actually doing the color space transforms on like the back end, so that it automatically does it to your clips. The problem with this that I find is that it gives you a lot less control over how you actually manage your clips and what order you do things in. Especially if you use custom DRTs, which we actually are going to talk about later on. So I always recommend to do it just in your nodes because you can customize a lot more that way, and you can utilize multiple different spaces. So we're just going to keep it at DaVinci YRGB. Timeline color space, I would highly recommend going to DaVinci Y Gamut Intermediate. The reason for that actually doesn't really have anything to do with how you actually use your color space transform or anything. The only thing that this changes is when you actually tag the nodes themselves, because when you, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So if I go into the color page here and I right click on a node and go to either color space or gamma and I tag it something else, what that node needs is a way for it to know how to go into this space. So if I tag this gamma to linear as an example, it has no intuitive way of knowing what's before it or what's after it or anything like that. It's just self-contained. So the only way for it to actually know what to go to and from is by that timeline working space that we saw inside of our project set. So what is actually happening here when I tag a node into a different gamma, we're going from DaVinci Y Gamut Intermediate to DaVinci Y Gamut Linear, and then at the end of the node, it's going back to DaVinci Y Gamut Intermediate. So that's how that is the whole thing about your color management tab, and then your output color space is just what you're delivering to, just so it knows to expect that when you go to render. Okay, now let's actually go to the color page and do some stuff. So there's,
before you do that, if I were to leave my timeline color space and Rec 709, what is like the downside of doing that?
So basically, if you do that, then when you let's say you tag your node to linear, right? Well, then it thinks that you're going from Rec 709 to linear instead of DaVinci Y Gamut to linear. So what happens is, and I can actually I'll do a demonstration of this real quick, just so you can actually, everybody can see this happening. So I'll just do the proper transform here. This is a Fujifilm F-Log clip, and we're going to go straight into DaVinci Y Gamut Intermediate. I'm just doing this real quick, again, for sake of example here. Swap these, and we'll just set this to Rec 709 Gamma 24, just to make it look normal. So this is a normal looking image, right? And so now we have this here, and let's say I want to fix the exposure. So I tag my gamma as linear, and if I bring gain down, now we're operating in a linear space. Now, what happens if I set my timeline working space to Rec 709? Well, let's find out. So let's just go to Rec 709 scene, hit save, and now let's do that same operation. It's slightly different. Here, let me actually change while there's an operation intact. It changes.
Huh.
Because this node does not know that we are in DaVinci Y Gamut Intermediate right now. This node only knows what I'm telling it inside of our project settings. So basically, instead of actually going from DaVinci Y Gamut into linear, what this node thinks we're doing is going from Rec 709 to linear. So that's why whenever I change my project settings, even though I don't change anything in the nodes themselves, if I change my timeline space to 709 scene or even just 709 Gamma 22, doesn't matter, it changes the operation of the node because it's doing a different transform to and from linear. Does that make sense?
Okay. So yeah, because even if you were to set up the sandwich CSTs, the nodes on the inside are still operating on that default 709 color space. So
Right.
by doing the, I guess what I'm trying to say is that setting your timeline color space to DaVinci Intermediate is set up to use CSTs, and you're making the assumption that you're going to sandwich some color space nodes in between, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to tell Resolve specifically what that space is. Otherwise, it doesn't have any intuitive. It has no idea what it's doing. Oh, my chat is above the panels. Right. I forgot about that. So I'm just going to do a quick explanation here. Actually, I think we got it. Basically, the idea is that this is doing tagging this to linear is basically just doing a CST sandwich without putting the CSTs on either side of it. That's what it is. So, all right.
Got it. Okay.
But in order to tell it like how it's doing CST sandwich, that's what this timeline color space is about. So, okay. With that out of the way, I'm just going to go ahead and reset this. We'll get back to this later. And I'm going to open my door because I am roasting in here.
Get the door open, man.
So hot.
I'm just going to reiterate while you're doing that for anybody who is tuning into the beginning of the stream and the idea of a color space transform seems like a lot. The color space, you're like, what is this? Really, really, really recommend going back and watching the previous session. This session is going to assume that you have a basic understanding of what a color space transform is, what the gain wheel adjusts, all that good stuff. Tim, I think, is going to do a good job explaining as he goes along, but yeah, I just throwing it out there because I have a feeling there's a couple people who are newer who are just like, wait, what do you mean like color space transform?
Yeah. So, and I can do the quick showcase of this, which actually I didn't realize how much this helped people. But essentially what we're doing when we're doing color space transforms, so this whole round shape right here, just only pay attention to this whole round shape right here. This represents what our eyes physically see. And then this triangle in here, this smaller triangle, this represents what your display can show. And then when we look at something like, well, let's actually look at let's see where to go. Where is it? Let's just look at like something like Sony S gamma so like when you're shooting S-Log3, this is what the Sony is seeing in terms of color. So basically what we're doing whenever we're doing color management is we have to find a way to tell it exactly what this triangle looks like. And the CST basically says, okay, this is what triangle we're working with. I'm going to put this color information into this triangle so that our display can actually show it properly, because our display can't actually physically display the entirety of what S-Log3 or any other log profile captures. So what color management is doing is telling it how to go from this to this. That's basically what we're doing. And then in addition to that, the whole DaVinci wide gamut thing is we're putting every single one of our cameras. So let's say we had like a Sony clip, a Fuji clip, Panasonic, whatever, and they're all different log spaces or whatever. We can put them all into the same space. So the color space transform can say, okay, I have an S-Log clip. I'm going to map that to DaVinci wide gamut here. And then I can map this Panasonic clip to DaVinci wide gamut. And they can all be the same space. And we can all work on each one of them the same exact way, regardless of what kind of camera they came from, so that all of our tools operate the same. And then at the end of it, we just say, okay, now let's map everything that's in DaVinci wide gamut to Rec 709 for our delivery. So we work in this gigantic space so that we have the most flexibility with how we move our colors and everything. But then at the end, we put it in a space where our display can show it, and it's actually the proper delivery format. So that is color. That is what's physically happening when we talk about color management. Okay.
Because everything gets so just for my understanding as well, every camera records color a little bit differently because they all have different sensors. different hardware, different software. They all process things a little bit differently. So
Yep.
when we're as grown-ups trying to color manage, we need to make sure that we kind of standardize where the color lives on one, and so that it operates and we can control it exactly the same as the way color is managed in another. And that's by putting the right triangle into the right triangle.
Yep. Yep.
Kind of, right?
And then people, yeah. And then the question that was asked, like in the first session by a couple people actually, is like, well, what if I just shoot straight Rec 709? Does this have any use for me? And then the answer was yes. You just do the same exact thing. You map the Rec 79 to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then it just goes right back to where it was. So that way you can still, even if you have a Rec 709 clip, like this one or this one, which we're going to talk about in a minute, we can map all of these clips. This is a drone camera, so this is D-log, and then this is F-log, and we can map all of these clips to the same working space, do all the same things to them, and then output them in the same way. So that's hopefully a good recap of color management and why we're doing what we're doing. And aside from that, what I'm going to do with some of these clips is group them. I can't remember. Did we talk about grouped nodes in the first session?
So yes, but basically we spent the bulk of it, I would say like 85% of it, talking through the color page, how it works, what color space transforms are, and then at the very end for like 10 to 15 minutes, you kind of talk through like some of this stuff, like group nodes and like post group, pre-group, all that kind of stuff.
So we did talk about it. Okay. So just to briefly recap what that's talking about just for 30 seconds. So essentially we have our two tabs up here, which are clip and timeline. This is what the clip means we're doing adjustments on that specific clip. Timeline is you're doing this to every clip in the timeline. Usually don't use that one, but it's there. We can also, if we go to add any of these clips to a group. Come on, result. There we go. Oh, my right click doesn't work. Hold on. I got to switch it to single view.
You're good. You are good.
Yeah. So if I right click on the clip and then I'll just add it into, new group, and I'll just call this 709 because it's, this isn't a log format. Now, if we go back up to this tab, we have two more areas. So we have group pre-clip and group post-clip. This means that any clip that's in this group, so if I add this one to it as well, so I'll just go ahead and add this one, which we can just right click on, go to groups, 709, assign to group. And now any adjustment I make on either one of these in the grouped nodes, let's go ahead and remove the gallery real quick. So I'll just move my offset here. You can see if you're looking at the clips, it's affecting both of them. So that's the purpose of grouping clips. And what's great about using this functionality is we can use the same color space transforms or any of our stuff on both of them simultaneously. So if I just, set my timeline to Rec 79 or 79 and then put them both into DaVinci Wide Gamut, now both of them are in DaVinci Wide Gamut. We can work on them in the same exact space. And then I can just copy this and then I can go to group post clip, paste that color space transform, swap it, and now it looks like we've done nothing, but now anything we do in between this input and then this output, so basically on the clip section, will be happening in DaVinci Wide Gamut.
Okay. I'm going to try to do that on my end real quick. So what we're doing is we're creating a group that will... Would you say you create a group for each camera that you use or recording method that you use?
Usually, yes. There's other reasons. There's other reasons to do it. That's the primary one I use it for, because I use multiple different formats of clips. But groups can you can use groups for different scenes. If you're doing narratives and like, okay, I need a group for this specific scene. This scene needs to have this specific look, but a different scene might want a different look. So you use groups based on scenes.
Okay.
But usually what I'll use groups for is defining the which camera it is, and then basically the basic look that I can apply to everything. Because if I'm adjusting stuff on a per clip level, then I can essentially just use the same group post clip on all of them, and then all of the pre clips will be different.
Okay.
So you can just you can apply the same things to the different ones.
Okay. So, for the example footage of me, Rec 709, Gamma 2.4, DaVinci wide gamut, DaVinci intermediate, pre-clip, and then
Yeah, you just copy that, go to group post clip, paste it, and then hit swap.
paste it, and then swap.
Yep.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
all we need to do there.
Okay.
So I did the output gamma to also to Rec 709 because I don't think it records in OBS, or I'm assuming it's an OBS recording.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it records in Gamma 2.4, so I just do Rec 709, Rec 709, keep it simple. There's nothing wrong with setting it to Gamma 2.4, just to be clear, but that's just, so, I mean, you can keep it like that if you want, but it's not going to make a difference.
Okay.
A huge difference, I should say. Okay, so with this clip in particular now that we've done this, this is when we start getting to like the actual node trees and your workflow. So in terms of how we actually want to approach, all right, when I look at this image, how do I know what I want to fix, and how do I know what needs fixing? How do I know what I want it to look like? So this goes back to the process of like what order you do all of your stuff in. Now, typically, if you're doing something narrative or documentary wise, usually you'll do the look development part of the process first. But sometimes when you just have a webcam or something, that look development process doesn't really exist. At least not always. So what we want to do now is look at this and say, okay, we have our color management in place. Now I can tell that this is a little bit underexposed. So I'm definitely going to want to like take a look at my waveform over here, and I can see most of our image down here is pretty low. Like we're looking at, I can expand this too, just so it's much easier to see. But most of our image is living down here lower in the exposure range. Like there's only reds even going above 60 IRE or 60%. So we want to raise our exposure. Now, the best way to do that, if we were paying attention at the beginning, is just by right-clicking our node here, going to gamma, and then setting it to linear, because this is going to essentially reverse engineer the process of how cameras record. So we're going basically back into a space that our eyes actually see in, so that we can do as photometrically accurate of an exposure assessment as we can. So there's another thing that we are going to want to fix with this, which is our white balance. So we can make another node from here. First, let's label our nodes, because labeling is important if you want to know exactly which one's which. So we go to node label, and I'm just going to call this EXP for exposure. So then we'll just press Alt S, and let's just call this one, we'll call this one balance. So we'll label this as balance. And this one's also going to be set to linear. And then this concept is a little bit tricky to understand, but on the balance node specifically, in our primaries, we'll want to turn loom mix down to 0. And the reason for that is, if you notice on our, I wish I had my zoom ins working. It's kind of annoying that it doesn't. But if you notice on our lift, gamma, and gain specifically, there's a 4th channel here. So we have our red, our green, and our blue channel, but there's also this 4th channel here, which is our luminance channel. Now, if luminance is set to 100, this adjusts our brightness right here without adjusting the colors. But if I have loom mix set to 0, this does nothing. So loom mix is basically how much influence this toggle has on the overall image. It's the same with the curves too. So if I unlink these and I'm only moving this, it's not going to do anything. But if I, move my reds, my greens, blah, 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 those do what they're intended. But if I turn loom mix on, then this does in fact move it. So Um, now, the reason we do that for this specifically is because we don't want, when we're adjusting our white balance, we don't want our luminance to change. Because we're trying to keep the same colors that we got from the exposure. So we want to keep our white balance the same, so we'll turn lumix off. And then after we adjust our balance, we'll probably want to adjust, okay, maybe our contrast ratio might need adjusting because that's usually what defines like the body of the image. So we'll go ahead and make third node, and we'll just call this one contrast. And we don't need to label this anything specific. This one, you can do contrast, and there's really three primary ways. There's probably more actually that you could use, but the three primary ways, the easiest one is just by adjusting your contrast and pit. There's also, you can do it by lift, gamma, gain, or you can use your custom curves, and we'll explore that in a second. So with just about any given node tree that you have, these are going to be your three most influential nodes at any point of the process. And you'll probably do, in most cases, not every case, but most cases, probably like 80 to 90% of the entire grade happens here. And I can show you exactly how that works right here. So with our exposure, we obviously want to bring our exposure up. Let's just look at this and see if there's any weird exposure stuff. No, it looks pretty normal. So go to here, and let's just bring our exposure up by bringing our gain up until we get to somewhere that looks kind of normal. Now I'm looking for where his skin tone reaches like right around the 50 to 60% area, roughly. And we're going to fix this peaking on the red here too. But I'm just getting it to a place.
So how are you looking at skin tone? So if 50 to 60 skin tone?
Yeah, roughly. Sometimes you can go up to 70 if you're like really white, or if that's like the intent. But generally like around 60% is roughly, again, it very much depends on the person's skin tone and the creative intent of the image. Like it could be anywhere from like 20 to 90. But in this instance, we're just trying to get a balanced image. So we're just going to push our exposure up to probably, let's just say 3 here, which is about 1.5 stops, roughly. So now that our exposure is kind of in place, let's go ahead and go to our balance node. And
so you did gain all the way to 3?
Yes.
Okay.
So 3. We have that.
And are you looking at, so when you're looking at, I have my I can't remember the phrase for it, but like the qualifier, the little preview.
The display qualifier focus, yes.
Yeah. So you're looking at the average between RGB, or are you looking at just
roughly speaking? I mean, it's a mixture of that and looking at the rest of the waveforms to see if the whole image feels balanced. Now, some of this is going to level itself out because the reds are very high right now. But once we do our balance node and actually like get this to a proper white balance, that red's going to come down a lot. So the first thing that we do is typically like we just want our exposure to a somewhat balanced state across the whole image. And then we move our balance, because it's going to be much easier to see where our color balance should be once our exposure is in place. Exposure is always the first thing you're looking at in an image. Is you want to have where it looks proper, because if you're trying to adjust white balance on something that's very underexposed and all of a sudden you move your exposure up and now everything looks completely out of whack, well, that's because we didn't actually have a proper context for what the scene actually looked like. If that makes any sense.
Kind of. So for me, when I'm going to be doing other footage moving forward, the thing that like I'd like to get more comfortable using the waveforms. I know color is oftentimes like it's a very much like a feel thing, and it's kind of iterative back and forth for a lot of things. But like if this was me doing this, probably where I would stop is like I guess around like 2.5. And then that, because like when I go to 2.5 on the gain, I feel like I still have wiggle room at the top for increasing exposure. So if I were to qualify this for me as in terms of like steps to follow, I'm hovering my qualifier tab on the skin tone and then looking to bring it up so that it's somewhere in like the 50 to 60 range ish.
Mm-hmm. So
Am I making sense or
yeah,
not
you
really?
are, and
Okay.
that is a relatively good way to think about it. Um, the I mean, this is part of me just having done this a number of times. But like knowing where that red is floating right now, and knowing that's going to come down once I actually balance everything, because I already know where this is going to land. Um, but in terms of like your overall exposure, the other thing that you need to consider is the contrast. Unless you like pin middle gray, which is another topic we can talk about in a bit, your contrast might change it too,
Yeah.
depending on like how which tools you're using and why. So, yeah, with exposure, I'm just trying to get an overall balance of the entire image, so that when I actually do get to my contrast, then I can adjust the whole image. Like I don't have to move the image around as much in order to get to my desired result.
Okay.
So when we get there, you'll see what I mean. So
Okay.
let's go to our balance node, and let's switch over to our vector scope, and I'll bring this big so we can see. All right,
And balance node, the only thing we have currently set is lumix to 0,
and
and
gamma
the
to
color space
linear.
and gamma is linear. Okay.
Yes, just gamma linear.
Okay.
Right. So let's go ahead and pull this up, and if I'm just going to do is 2 times zoom and showing skin tone indicator. You don't necessarily have to do this part. This is just so the stream can see it a lot easier. But the skin tone indicator is really good to have though. So again, we can do and if we select this top right button up here, I know the chat is kind of blocking, but you can still see it. There's this display qualifier focus, which if you have that enabled, then you can run this over and see where your skin tones are going. So the interesting part is like our skin tones are hitting around the white right line, but obviously with our colors, they're being pushed way up in the reds and yellows, like way far. So we want to pull that down while keeping these skin tones intact. And the easiest way to do that on our balance node here, again, since we're in linear, we'll go to gain, and we're just going to pull it. And the great thing with this vector scope is it basically directly corresponds with our color wheels. So whichever direction we pull this, it's going to follow that exact direction. So if we grab our gain and start pulling it down, we can keep the skin tones on those lines and kind of balance. And there's a couple ways that you can determine what is balanced. Usually what I'll do, if I don't have a good reference for what is actually white, what white should look like, especially if there's mixed lighting sources, a good rule of thumb to get you in the pretty decent spot is by just this white blob right here is kind of getting that to a decent center point where everything feels a little bit more balanced. There's colors going in different places. There's good color separation, and we're feeling good about it because now that with that one adjustment, we went from this down to here, and everything feels a little bit more cohesive and balanced. And we'll get to overall saturation in a minute, but that's saturation. It's not necessarily secondary adjustment, but even just so we've done 2 steps here. So we adjusted our exposure here to get it to a balanced spot, and then we adjusted our color balance to get it to a proper light balance here. Now, if we look at our waveform, we still have a decent amount of red, but it's definitely not anywhere near as high as it was. And skin tone is going to lean more red than anything. So if we wanted to bring it more down, we definitely could. But you can see, like, as we continue to go this way, you can see that like red is still the most prevalent, but it's nowhere near as high as it was, even when we increase our exposure that much. So we have a pretty good reference point for our balance here. So this is what we've done so far. See how much in just 2 nodes we've gotten it to like a normalized image. Now we can go to our contrast. Now there's 3 primary ways that we can handle contrast here. So we can just move our contrast and pivot. That would be the easiest way. So if I just start increasing contrast or even decreasing contrast, that's also valid, because sometimes you might have places in the dark where that are like a little bit too much. But we'll just go ahead and increase it, and then we can adjust our pivot point to adjust where that contrast is applied. Now, there's a nice little trick with this contrast knob here, or this pivot knob here. If you know, well, I mean, in DaVinci Wide Gamut specifically, in DaVinci Wide Gamut, we actually know what the pivot point for middle gray is. And the reason adjusting contrast from a pinned middle gray point is important is that whenever you adjust contrast with that pinned point, your exposure doesn't change. So the pivot point for DaVinci Wide Gamut specifically is actually 0.336. So if we set pivot to 0.336 and I moved my contrast, see how even though we're like adjusting contrast here, the exposure, overall exposure of the image is not changing. So that's one nice little detail you can use if you wanted to pin middle gray. So, you know, just an option. But anyways, that's contrast and pivot. That's like the quickest and dirtiest way to do it. Another way that the way that I use it probably the most is I actually do a combination of lift, gamma, gain. And usually I'll start with my gain and kind of push it to the point where it's nearing the top. And this one we don't really need to push that much. But the next thing I'll do is actually just bring my gamma down. And what gamma down will do is kind of add a little more contrast and body to the image. So I'll push this down till it like starts to like feel pretty squeezed, and then just start bringing my lift up to bring some life into those shadows again. And I can do that a few times and just like rotate between them. But that gives me
Is the contrast node in linear as well?
No.
Okay. So this is normal.
This is just straight working DaVinci Wide Gamut and normally.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just doing that like gives a little bit more body. Again, I just made this a subtle adjustment, but like, you know, it already cleaned up a little of those little highlight peaks and brought them down, but it also feels like it gives more body to the image as well. So, and if I did an extreme example, let's just push gain way up and gamma way down, and then lift up quite a bit. Again, this is probably too high. But like you can see like even in the face, there's like more life in the face, but we can also see more details. And here it's not like as crushed, because before this contrast node, all these blacks were like really far down. There's very little detail here. And we even brought those up while still giving more body to the image. So that's one way I like doing contrast, like bring up gain, bring down gamma, bring up lift. It's a very simple way to, yeah, very simple way to just like add some more life to it. And I can also like turn Lumix off. You can optionally turn Lumix off for this one. In this instance, it's probably not going to make a huge difference. It's actually kind of imperceivable in this case, but it's an option that you have. Another way to do it that I've actually started doing a little bit more because I like doing is actually using your custom curves. And a way that you can do stuff with curves is like, let's say you want to, if you want to just make like, how do I explain this? The easiest way to make a contrast adjustment or just add contrast with curves is just by bringing the low end down and bringing the high end up. And that's just called an S-curve. It's a standard contrast S-curve, but we can actually shape our curve a little bit more by adjusting like different middle points here. So I can get some very deep looking shadows here, but I can also lift the bottom to get a little bit more detail so that we're not like crushing the black ends very much. But like even just that gave it a very different flavor as well. So you can pin multiple points. Now, the thing you do need to be careful of is that if you start like moving your curves like so that one end goes over top of the other, you'd never want your curve to like go over top of the next point, if that makes any sense, because then it starts to break your image, because then something that was lower exposed in the image is now higher than something that was higher exposed, and then now they're crossing each other, and then it breaks the image. So yeah, this is something you want to avoid doing, but curves are a great way to shape the overall body of the image. It's becoming a more favorite way. And then another thing you can do with it is, like, let's say we wanted a low contrast look, so I can actually like decrease the space we're working in. So you don't have to do this part, but I'm just going to bring these down, but bring this here and up here. So now I have a nice faded look, but there's still a lot of contrast in this image. As opposed to this, this looks like there's less contrast, even though this space is a little higher. But now with this, like, I have this is an extreme example, of course, but I have a very faded low end.
Yeah.
But because I'm basically shaping this middle point here, and this middle point is mostly where that contrast is going to show the most. So you can still have very high contrast in an image while like really compressing your shadows and highlights.
What would you say? So when you're trying to decide between lift, gamma, gain and using the curves, is there a moment where you're like, this is going to make more sense to use one over the other? Or is it just kind of like wherever your heart's taking you in that moment?
Usually if I'm doing something really quickly, and this doesn't need to have like a super cohesive look or something, I just need to create a nice body to the image really quickly. Like, for example, if I'm doing some sort of corporate interview, I'm not going to go with like a really fancy low contrast and heavy look for something like that. So that's something that will usually come down to the type of project you're doing and how much time you have, because while curves gives you the most flexibility out of any of the options, it's also the one that takes the longest. So I'll usually use lift, gamma, gain if I need to do a solid look quickly. But neither of them are wrong choices. And if you have a preset for curves that you can use, excuse me. So let's say this was like a preset that I could use. So I'll just make this quickly here. So like I could use this as a preset node. If I just save this into the gallery, I would disable these, of course. But let's just say I save this contrast as a still. Then if I turn this off, and then I could just use this as like my starting point. So I could just append this in here and it'll bring these two in. So you'll want to delete the stuff if you want to bring it in. But
wait, can you do that one more time for me?
Yeah. So let me see that. I know there's a better way to do this probably. See, what would be a good way to show this? So right now I have like a contrast type of node that I really, really like. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to copy these nodes real quick. I'm just going to paste them over here so I don't lose them. Nope, don't do that. I have to paste them both.
Yeah, I've always wondered why there isn't a button like in Fusion to copy and paste like an actual node structure.
Yeah, well, there is. That's
okay.
kind of what this is doing. So I'm just delete this. So so now we just have this contrast node in here. So let's say I want to save this as like its own little template node. I can right click on the image on the window with this node tree selected and hit grab still. And then in my gallery, that will be this right here. So I'll label this as my contrast template. If I can type. So now if I remove this, I'll just take out this node and let's just go ahead and bring these back. So I'll just copy, paste, and then copy, and paste, and then go ahead and delete these. All right, so now we're back to where we were. And now I want to bring back the contrast that we had. So I can go ahead and add a new node in here. And I can just click and drag this onto the node. And now we have our contrast template right here. So you can also save this all as a template as well. So if I grab still like this and just say Change label. I'll just call this X val con. It's for exposure, balance, contrast. So let's say we wipe this all away, and I wanted to just place those 3 on here. I could just middle click, and now those nodes are back. So you can paste that node structure. Or if I want to add those, so let's say I had like a bunch of nodes already here, and I just had this as a look that I wanted to add to the node tree without overwriting anything, I could right click and select append node graph, and it adds it to the end of the node tree.
Got it. That was kind of what I was curious about.
Yeah. I had to explain the other parts for the append node graph to make sense.
Yeah.
So that's how that works.
Okay.
Yeah. Append will add it to the end of the node tree. Apply will overwrite what's in the node tree. And applying is also middle clicking.
Is now a good time for a couple questions, or are you kind of in the middle of workflow?
Now's a good time for questions before we get on to the next part, because these 3 nodes are typically like the body of the image. We're going to get into some like secondary stuff now after this. So I think now's a good time for questions.
Okay, so this is a little while ago, but Kyrie had asked if it's normal practice to apply LUTs on like one giant adjustment layer that sweeps your timeline, or to apply it on a clip by clip level.
That's going to depend on the type of LUT that you're using. Now I do use LUTs sometimes, but not super often. So and I saw somebody else ask something about LUTs, so I'm going to rope this answer into this too. Hopefully the person who asked this other question is still here. Horse PPP. So yeah, because he's like, I always hear about LUTs but never understood what they were. So just to explain what a LUT is in a nutshell, a LUT is basically I'll call it a color preset. That's not exactly what it is, but it's basically a way for a tool to do basic dumb math to go from one color to a different color. That's essentially what a LUT is doing. So it maps it out in an interesting way, and OBS actually has a great way of showing this. I'm just going to go ahead and actually I should probably, I don't know if I should show my local disk, so I'm just going to hide this. But I'm just going to pull up something real quick. Apply LUT, and then go to browse, and then just copy this, paste this. Yeah, perfect. Okay. And then remove that. Okay. So I'm going to pull up an image here, and this is going to look like something broke. I promise you it didn't. Okay. So does everybody see this right here? So this image right here is basically like OBS's 2D interpretation of a 3D LUT. You don't have to understand that terminology. Basically what this is, though, is like if I was to use this as a LUT, this is something that wouldn't change the image whatsoever. So this is basically a map of like 512 pixels. So this is what is it called? I want to say a 33-point LUT or 64. Anyways, that doesn't matter. Essentially what this means, though, is that if I made changes to this file right here, and let's just say I wanted to do an orange and teal look, or something like that. What I could do is, let's just do orange highlights as an example. I could do this to the LUT file. I make adjustments, the same adjustments I would make to an image, and now you can see how this changes. So what a LUT is doing is it's comparing this. So this is the original image, and then it's going to look at all of these color values and say, okay, I want to change them to this. So it does that. so that's basically what's happening. If I go ahead and just go in here and I go to LUT, and then let's just say I wanted to, this one's a basic one, I think. So just add a stop. It's basically just looking at those original pixels and saying, okay, based on this value, I need to change it to this value. So it's basically like a before and after comparison. That's essentially what a LUT is doing. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense, but it's basically just doing dumb math to say, I'm going from this to this. There's nothing intuitive about a LUT that like knows what you're doing or whatever.
in my head, I don't know if this is backwards thinking, but I think of LUTs as just like a conversion table. So like when if you were to use a LUT, it's looking for like, okay, reds. We need to make reds lighter. Blues. Okay, look at the blues. We need to make them darker. But from my understanding, it's like a pretty aggressive process when you're using a LUT, correct or no?
It depend. Well, that also kind of depends on the LUT, but not really.
Okay.
LUTs are usually pretty light because the math is actually not that crazy.
Okay.
It depends on like the density of the LUT and like how precise you're getting with it. So, because like some can be like super super basic, and that takes like absolutely no processing at all, and some can be like have significantly more points of change. But a conversion table is basically correct.
Okay.
So it's either like you're making certain pixels brighter, darker, or shifting the hue in some sort of way. So like reds are shifting more towards orange, blues are shifting more towards cyan. Blah blah. The LUTs can do pretty much all of that. The biggest thing about LUTs though is like if you are using LUTs, like make sure you're getting them from reputable sources. Because a lot of people will just like do this to an image and then ship it off and sell it. Don't do that. So there are things that make LUTs really, really good. There are also things that make LUTs really, really bad. And there's different types of LUTs too. Like there are technical LUTs for the conversions. So like manufacturers of cameras will have their own LUTs to go from, let's just say S-Log3 to Rec 709. Like those are pretty standard, and those are usually typically pretty reliable. And there's also different LUTs that have different looks and use cases. So you can, and usually if it's a LUT that implies a certain aesthetic or a specific look, you're usually placing that at the end of your node tree, either right before or right after your last CST, depending on what it was designed with. So as an example, I actually have a couple examples here. So like there's this LUT here from Frenchy Color Grading, actually. I think I have it in here. I really
Frenchy.
Yeah. I really hope I have it in here. Is it in here or not? I thought for sure I had it. I don't. I'm sorry, Frenchie. I thought I downloaded it.
Wow.
She has a really good Bangkok LUT. Everybody should download it. I know I've used it. I just don't know where it is right now. Anyways, I have Colin Kelly LUTs. This will be the same exact example. It's fine. Okay, so there's these 2383 LUTs that he's designed. So in this instance, this LUT was designed in a DaVinci wide gamut space, and it's outputting a DaVinci wide gamut space, meaning it was designed with like within those constraints, and doesn't have any sort of other transform on it. It's just working inside of DaVinci wide gamut. So if I use that LUT here, the LUT's working properly in this space. But if I put this LUT over here, then it's obviously not working properly because it wasn't designed for Rec 709. It was designed for DaVinci wide gamut. Now there are a bunch of other LUTs in here. Let's see. Let's try film looks because I think these are the standard ones. So yeah. So if I do the 2383 in Rec 709, now this one's doing what's supposed to. This one's a more aggressive one, of course. But if I did this and put this over here.
Are you hotkey
Rafa!
dragon?
Hello, Rafa. Sorry.
I was like, I don't know the Rafa button.
No, Rafa is not a button. He is an amazing human being. He often moderates for Colin Kelly. He's great. He knows a lot of what he's talking about. I know I betrayed Frenchie live and I'm a horrible person. Anyways, so yeah, like if you were to use this Rec 709 LUT inside of DaVinci wide gamut, obviously it's not going to work. So again, you need to understand what your LUT was designed in, and usually it's, if you're using it for it to get a specific look like a 2383, then typically what will happen is you put it right before or right after, again, depends on what is designed in. You put it at the end of your node tree so that you can basically grade under the look, is what they usually call it.
How did you? What was the hotkey for dragging the node out of the pipeline?
E.
E. Oh, that's a weird one.
Yeah, it's very unusual.
And
Where's the
so
Lumetri color stream? It doesn't exist.
when you're, if you were to go and like you're purchasing a LUT, is it safe to say that? Is it safe to make the assumption that 99% of them are for like the general population and are meant to be used for like Rec 709, not in the DaVinci wide space?
This is going to get me in trouble. I would say 99% of them shouldn't be used.
Ooh, okay.
Because a lot of people have a very heavy misunderstanding of what the purpose of a LUT is. Because there are multiple purposes for it.
Okay.
But like, it's the thing is, you have to know that your LUT came from a reputable source who knows the inner workings of how color science works. And the reason for that is because you can get a LUT that was just like made by some big YouTuber or something, but if he doesn't actually know how the inner workings of how like all the math behind how DaVinci Wide Gamma or ASIS or whatever pipeline you're using, then the problem becomes is that when you put that LUT onto something, or he or she doesn't understand how that LUT was supposed to be applied, then somebody else might buy that LUT, use it for a purpose that wasn't intended for, or even if it was for the intended purpose, but the person who designed it didn't understand the full scope of the amount of, like, didn't do enough testing, like stress testing to see like, okay, does this actually break boundaries in some certain clips? Does it not? Then that's when it can definitely cause a lot of problems. So like kind of long-winded answer to say that like LUTs are one of those things you want to be very, very careful when you buy them. People I do recommend buying them from are people like obviously Colin Kelly. Frenchie is very reputable. She knows exactly what she's doing. Gerald Undone has some good technical LUTs for camera matching. And Gerald does a lot of stress testing with his stuff. He knows what he's talking about too. But you know, there's a lot of people that don't. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to look and see and see what people review and all that stuff. Aren't you a Canon? I'm not. I've shot a lot of Canons. I've used the C80 R5C and a lot of I will say the C300 series is amazing, but ever seen Tornado EOS before? I don't think so. Okay. Was there any other questions?
Yes. So I know you want to get back into the thing, but I guess Kyrie was saying that he's more curious about let's say you are shooting, you have the exact same camera footage that you're using throughout. Should you color grade with one giant adjustment clip, or
right,
should you go clip by clip?
I don't like the adjustment clip approach personally.
Why?
I do. So it's because you don't see it on your node tree in the same clips. It's a completely separate workflow. So like as an example, and okay, let me be clear. I'm not saying that's the wrong approach. It's not a wrong approach per se. You just have to be very careful with when you do it. So what he's talking about, what Kyrie is talking about, is Kyrie here? Anyways, adjustment clip over top of all of your footage here. And let's say you want to use this as your look. So you go in here and you just apply, well, here's the other part. You can't use DaVinci Wide Gamut ones either. So I have to specifically use a Rec 709 one here. But let's just use the 2383, and this one's going to be very strong. So I'm going to go to the output and just kind of reduce that. The problem with this approach is that when you actually go into grading your actual clips, let me go to my clips here and actually pull that up. The problem with doing that is when you're actually grading your clips, you don't actually like see that part of the adjustment. So if I disabled all of my if I disabled all of my LUTs, or all of my nodes, then I'm not seeing where that LUT is at in the pipeline. And I don't have the ability to use any sort of DaVinci wide gamut options because it's happening outside of the scope of our actual clips. Again, there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with this. You can very well do it, and you can probably even do the CST sandwich in here if you want to apply the look across the whole thing. But at the same time, there's one more thing that you can do instead. Timeline.
Oh, okay.
So instead of doing it in an adjustment clip, you just do it here. Then you actually have access to it without having to like go to the actual adjustment clip in your clips section. You can access this timeline from any clip that you're on, and this will be the same. So if I, excuse me, sorry for my throat right now.
You're good.
So let's just do this. Rec 709, Gamma 24, DaVinci wide gamut, DaVinci intermediate. Go ahead and copy. Whoops. Paste. Swap. All right. And then if I put this LUT, that 2383 Colin Kelly LUT in here, now that's happening in a DaVinci wide gamut space, and it's actually being applied properly. I took the nodes off, so let me just turn these back on real quick. Okay. So now this is being applied properly, assuming that everything else is actually going into that space. But now if you look, like all of them are getting it in the proper way, and I want to go into the timeline and change that look, you know, I can go in here and let's say I wanted to use a different LUT. Let's just go ahead and use the 3510. But now all the clips have that as well.
Okay.
So again, the reason I don't like using timeline though is because this literally applies to everything in your timeline, not just
you
your,
can't segment it at all.
No, because then you're placing it over titles, you're placing it over other like maybe pre-colored B-roll clips. You don't have any way of telling it not to use the timeline on there, which is why I use the group post clip option. And one thing, if I want to make sure all of the clips have it, and I don't have to keep going into every single group, you can use shared nodes. So if your group post clip is the same for every one of them, because every single one of them is going from DaVinci wide gamut, DaVinci intermediate to your display space, you can save them as shared nodes. And then that way you just use the shared nodes in every single one of your groups. So let me just go to this and make sure it's an flog. So add into a new group, just call this flog. And then in this group, instead of dragging the color space transformer here, I can literally just right click and then add node, shared node. I could probably label the nodes too. That would be helpful. But I just put this in here. And then now if I make changes to this node, I have to unlock it too by right clicking, selecting lock node. But I can make changes to this and just set this to Gamma 2.4 instead. And now this one's set to Gamma 2.4 as well.
Yeah.
And these are two different groups.
Like
so
an instance.
That's one way. That's one way you can still do like a timeline like effect without actually using the timeline, which would be shared nodes.
So my one follow-up question to this, and then I'll let you move on, is let's say I was to use the adjustment clip method. If you film something in F-log or S-log and I put an adjustment clip over it, does the adjustment clip properly do the color space transform on that, or do I have to apply that on the clip itself?
So the order of operations that happens is this will run through. I actually don't know about the timeline part of it. Let's assume that we're not using timeline
right,
here.
it's fine.
Just because I normally don't. So the order of operations is that the clip itself will run through the group pre-clip, the clip, and group post-clip before the adjustment clip hits it.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
So one way you could do it is instead of output, like if you were to use the adjustment clip method, which again is not the wrong way to do it. I just personally don't like it because it feels limiting, but it's you can technically do it. One way you can approach it is instead of doing the output transform on the group post clip for each one of the groups, you do that in the adjustment clip.
Yeah.
So that is a way you can circumvent it. But again, if you're trying to design a look and maybe some cameras needs specific adjustments to match the other ones, instead of doing it on the clip level, it's nice to do that on a group post clip level. So I mean, again, it just depends on the workflow. But I usually like having everything centralized in this area so I don't have to go find that adjustment clip in here. Yeah. Because that's really the biggest drawback is you're having to spend time finding that adjustment clip and then making the changes there, then going back to the clip you were at. Whereas if you do the shared nodes in a group, you can do it in whatever node you're on.
So from my understanding as well, one of the downsides of using an adjustment clip, and I'm more familiar with it for like the fusion side of things, is that you're basically like doubling the amount. Now, I wouldn't say doubling, but you're requiring a lot more of DaVinci Resolve when it comes to like playback speed, because the adjustment clip has to look below at everything underneath it, bring it up, composite it if you have more than one layer, and then it uses that information for creating anything. So I feel like it's kind of like a quick and dirty method of doing things, but I've definitely moved away from doing like giant adjustment clips on top of everything.
Yeah, that's it. It creates more mess than it helps. Because if you have stuff on your, because then you have to like, okay, now you have to make sure like B-roll that I don't want to touch, it goes on the third layer. I have to make sure titles don't go underneath it as well. And then like moving stuff around, it gets messy very, very fast. So that's why I usually don't recommend doing adjustment clips. They'll work. It works. But it
might be nice for like some fine tuning for things like in YouTube land. I think you can get away with it more because it's just like it's a little more lean and give. But yeah, I think just in like bigger, more professional projects, I've only had exposure to it a couple times, and setting up groups just always seems to work a lot better for me.
Yeah, I think it's just more efficient. I think you touched on a good point too with how it can create more processing, because the adjustment clip has to like look at the image and they create a new, it's not really the source image, you're actually creating a new image with the adjustment clip. So, and then you're compositing on top of that, so it does increase processing time. That is correct.
Do you need a break? You've been no, you're good, you're ready to rip.
I've got some good old coffee here.
Yeah,
that's my handshakes.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, I'm good. If you're good.
Yeah. Okay. I need to use the restroom real quick because I had coffee this morning and I have to tinkle. So give me 2 seconds and I'll be right back.
Okay. Cool. So while you're doing that, I can look at chat. On any of the chats, if you're on either of our YouTube channels or either Twitch channels, if you have any additional questions before we move on to additional workflow stuff, let me know here. I know we're going through a lot of crazy stuff, but if there's anything that doesn't make sense, please let me know, because I want to make sure that you guys actually understand these things. Are the film looks not designed for Cineon? Oh yeah, some of them are. Yeah, you're correct. I was just doing a quick example. There are film looks that are designed specifically for Cineon. Actually, I think the film looks that I showed in here are. I'm pretty sure they are. I just don't use them because I like Collins better. So if I use them, but I also have different look development tools. So again, I just don't really need them. So yeah, so you are correct in that they do require Cineon, and basically what that means is like if you go and you want to use a LUT after you're like at the end to define a look, instead of going to Rec 79 Gamma 2.4, you would actually go to Cineon film log and then add a new node after that, and then you go to your LUT, go to film looks, and then add it from here. Because what it doesn't tell you is that it requires Cineon. But yeah, this is what it's actually supposed to look like. So yeah, thank you for calling that out because I did forget to mention that. And the other part is in my personal workflow, I actually never use color space transforms as your output to DX79 Gamma 24. I actually have DCTLs that do that. So if I disable this, I actually personally prefer the JP2499. So this will do like a very similar thing, but it does it in a different way. So I can explain this a little bit later and why I prefer this method. But we'll get to that if we have time. Because I do want to talk about DCTLs, but the reason I don't is because it's only on the studio version, so people that are on the free version can't even utilize this anyways. So, what should you do if you don't know the camera? Yeah, that's something we talked about in the first session. So, there are clues that you can take from the clips themselves to kind of figure out if it comes from an actual camera, not from an OBS recording. OBS recording, you're kind of like hard to figure out. But if you don't know the camera, there's clues that you can kind of figure out what camera it's from. The ones that are the most nightmarish, especially for me and Rafa, if you're still here, I know you've dealt with this too, because we had this conversation before. But when it comes to like getting stuff from Artlist, especially for Blackmagic cameras, they have like 10 billion different types of color spaces and gammas. So that's always a pain to actually have to sort through. And it's like, okay, what kind of looks the most accurate? But the idea is that you want to see if you can get the closest you can to well, first you want to figure out which camera it's from. So if I look at my clips here and go to my media pool, I know this DSCF is specific to Fuji and their color naming schemes, so I can pretty reasonably assert that that is Fujifilm F-Log or F-Log 2. Then we have this is just a straight Rec 79 footage. I know there's no log in it, but then we have this is a drone, and again these are, I renamed these clips so it's not going to show here, but DJI drones have very specific file naming conventions, so you can do, so I just know this is probably a DJI D-Log M or D-Log. And then Sony usually starts with a C and then has like a few numbers on it, and then Canon, depending on which type of Canon it is, can have like starts with like MVI, blah blah blah. So usually I look at file names to determine what camera it's from, and then I just kind of go through, okay, what which input color spaces and gammas get me to something that looks like the most accurate spot. So it is, you do have to do a certain amount of guesswork, but it's amount of educated guessing to where if you aren't 100% sure, I would lean towards what looks right in terms of color, and then what doesn't give you an overly huge amount of contrast. If it looks too contrasty, it's probably wrong. But that's usually where I default to.
All right, I have piddled. I am ready to color.
Oh, well, okay. You got me excited. Okay. I don't know why I said that.
Listen, man, okay. Reel it in.
Yeah. Look for the metadata stuff and keep a mental note for the future. Yeah, if there's metadata on it, that gives you a lot more indicators, but most of the footage I work with doesn't have that type of metadata in it, so I have to look at the file names and kind of make a reasonable guess. And one thing that can be hard with Sony footage is the difference between S-Gamut 3 and S-Gamut 3 Cine is on a display is like very subtle, but it is different, and it's that one I've had a hard time figuring out too. But at the end of the day, like if it's not perfect, at least you're a lot closer to the right answer than just not doing it at all. So you can still get to a reasonable conclusion by just, getting somewhere close. Okay. Oh, now for additional colory stuff. Okay, so now that we have this in its current state, do I still have the adjustment clip on? No, I don't. Okay, good. I didn't think I did. So yeah, we got this to like a pretty solid looking looking image, but is there more that we can do with this? And there definitely can be. So now that we've gotten our 3 primary adjustments here, there's a few more things that we can look at doing. Now I'm going to start talking about what nodes are and how they can differ, because there are different types of nodes. So, if you just keep adding nodes and stuff, these are serial nodes, which basically just means another point where it's creating a new image. That's really all that means. There's nothing super special about it. That's just how they work. But there are these things called parallel nodes. Now, parallel nodes are very interesting because they give you a little bit more flexibility on doing different types of adjustments. I'm going to show this with some saturation stuff right here. So let's go ahead and did we talk about HSV last time? The HSL, HSV stuff?
Yes, but a little recap would be much appreciated.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about saturation here. And saturation is one of those things that's really complex to understand because there's not really a cohesive way. Like red, green, and blue pixels don't necessarily measure saturation by themselves. So it can be really confusing. But essentially what we mean by saturation is just how vivid the image is. And the default saturation tools actually give like kind of the opposite effect that we want, because they don't behave like normal real life colors do. Because if you look at something in real life, like if I look at this can here, if I am looking at this just purely from a light perspective, if a color gets more, like if there's a thing that has more color in it, usually the more color you add to it, the darker it gets, right? Like if you're doing a print job and you want something to give more and more color, overall that color is going to be darker because there's less light bouncing off of it. That's how saturation works in real life. The more vivid it is, the darker it is. But the Resolve's primary saturation doesn't function that way. Resolve's saturation will make pixels brighter. So just to demonstrate this, if I move my saturation and my primaries up here, you can see that it just looks like everything's being pushed, and you can see our reds are being like pushed up into the ceiling, and it just looks it's almost video-y and just looks kind of nasty. But if we do it in a way that's more simulated to real life, also known as subtractive saturation, again, the more vivid a color is, the darker it gets, we can right click on our node here, go to color space, and we can actually set it to HSV. And what this is actually going to do is actually replace red, green, and blue. So instead of lift, gamma, gain, and offset being red, green, and blue, it's actually going to be red is hue, green is saturation, and blue is value. So if I move just the green channel, you'll see our saturation increases and decreases. Now, if I increase saturation, you'll notice that we're getting a very, very different result in the skin. Now, obviously, this is very, very saturated, but it's not blown out. We're not blowing any colors out, anything like crazy, because we're making the pixels darker as we increase saturation. So that's how subtractive saturation works. The only caveat to this is if you decrease saturation, then you're making it brighter. So how can we how can we mix those two to get like a more desired result? Well, we can go into this node right here, the bottom one, and we can set this to color space HSL. Now HSL works in that additive mode that's very, very similar to the primary saturation. And then HSV is subtractive. So let's go ahead and I'll label these real quick. So the first one's HSV, second one, HSL.
And the gamma's left
Gamma's
alone
unchanged.
on both of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you set, this is another fun tip. There are four color spaces in here that actually changed red, green, and blue to different things. HSV and HSL are two of them. The other two are LAB and YUV. We're probably not going to get to those other two in this session. But the other thing with these special color spaces is if you set it to one of these, the gamma tag is ignored. So it doesn't matter what you set your gamma tag to, it's not going to change anything. So just a fun little tip there. So now we have HSV and HSL. Now we showed the side effect of when you decrease saturation in HSV, it actually makes your pixels brighter. Well, in an additive saturation model, what happens if we decrease saturation there? It subtracts. So we can mix those two. So we can decrease saturation in HSL, increase saturation in HSV, and we'll just do like a net equal. So we'll have like 0.5, like we'll reduce it by 0.5 in HSL, increase it by 1.5 in HSV. So now if we highlight these and go back and forth, really what we've done is just created a density. But we made those like really these bright spots on the side of his face. We just kind of made them fill in and feel a little bit more filmic and a little bit more. We gave how do I put this? Made it feel gave it a little bit more life in a way that doesn't push it out too far. So this is just a fun little way where you can actually just shape your saturation and density at the same time. Now, why we do this in a parallel node is because both HSV and HSL are receiving the same image from contrast. And the difference that makes is if I put HSL after HSV, watch what happens. It looks very, very different. It doesn't necessarily look bad, but it's not the same. It's not the same type of control that we want. So it's because now what HSL is getting is whatever the HSV is sending to it instead of what the contrast is setting to it. So parallel nodes help you work on and operate on the image in different ways. So, and again, if I put HSL behind HSV, again, we're getting a slightly different reproduction. It's pretty similar to if it was in line, but yeah. Again, different.
Is it always 1-to-1 in add subtract for HSV, HSL?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
It's hard to determine the exact math to it because the models are completely different. So the way that HSL works is obviously it's the difference is value versus lightness or luminance. The way that HSL works is the saturation will go from black to white. So the highest point of saturation is actually 50%. HSV, the value, because of value, the highest when saturation is at its max, it's 100% color in value. It's just a different way of interpreting it. So yeah, it's a little bit confusing to understand, but basically because of saturation, you're not increasing luminance when you're increasing saturation in HSV, but you are increasing luminance when you increase it in HSL, if that makes any sense.
Kind of.
The difference is in one saturation increases luminance, and the other saturation decreases luminance.
Okay.
That's really the biggest takeaway with that. So these are what I primarily use to adjust my overall saturation of the image. So you can get pretty fancy with like how much you want to take away and stuff. So maybe you want to like do pretty dense. Now, the more you take away from an HSL and the more you increase in HSV, the more dense it will look. So you can get like pretty extreme, and sometimes it can be too much. But it's up to taste. So I usually start with this and then just kind of roll with it. But that adjusts your overall saturation, so that's why we still have it relatively early on in your node tree. And you don't even have to do these first. You can actually have these there, disable them, do any other fine tunings, and then let's say the look kind of let's say you just had a look at the end of it or something. Let's just add. Again, you don't have this let, but let's just put it here, and let's just say, I don't really like how saturated that is. then I can actually go in here and reshape it. Let me just disable these. And I can just decrease HSL here a bit. And then maybe increase HSV just a touch.
Yeah.
And now we're getting like, okay, now we don't have to worry about like fiddling with the how much of the LUT we're using. We can just control our overall saturation of the image, and now we get a little bit like it's not oversaturated. We get a cleaner reproduction while still keeping the characteristics of the LUT.
Is there ever an instance when you're using HSV, HSL when you would adjust anything besides the green input on the gain slider?
So actually that's a good question. I'm gonna go ahead and
I
remove
know.
this.
I'm smart.
Wow, amazing. There it is. I'm gonna remove my so there's 4 different adjustments that you can move in this space. So green and gain is obviously one of them. The other one is green and gamma. And then the other 2 are blue and gain and gamma, because blue is just luminance. So you can adjust this, and it's actually going to do something very, very similar to what gain actually does. And so is gamma. So you can do that. Now in the saturation, this one gets a little more interesting, because if you think of gain as your like focusing mostly on the brightest or the most saturated pixels, you can actually decrease saturation in gain and then increase saturation in gamma. And now if we look at a vector scope of what's actually happening here, again, I'm going to blow this way up so you can see it, but like this is before, and I'm going to do a more extreme example so you can see this. So I'm just going to bring this way down and bring this way up. So what's happening here is when this is off and this is on, what's happening here is because we're bringing gain down and gamma up, the highest saturated values are going down, but the lower saturated values are going up. So it's like compressing your saturation. So if you have...
Very cool.
Yeah. So this can be a good, if you have like a lot of really, really bright or really, really vivid, like post-it notes are a good example of this. I wish I had the clip pulled up because I don't in this example. But let's just say, I mean, the computer is actually a good example of this. So there's very, very little color on the back wall here, but there's some like really bright pixel or really saturated pixels on this computer screen here. But if I use this gain gamma thing, I can reduce some of those bright pixels while still maintaining like a good, decent color palette. But now everything else is also like actually receiving a little bit of color, and you actually get a little bit cleaner of an image instead of just like this poppy separation here.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I like that a lot.
Yeah. So that is something you can do. Absolutely.
I like that. These are good to know.
Yeah. Oh, here's another fun thing with that. So you know how our gamma and gain are. Do you know why we don't use offset or lift for this?
I know. So yes, because lift breaks because we're dividing by zeros, or I can't remember the specific rule, but lift is busted, and then offset I don't remember.
So lift and offset move the one thing that gamma and gain don't, and that's zero.
Okay.
And or black basically, because you can't. So gamma and gain don't move. If there's zero saturation in that part of the image, gamma and gain won't touch it. If there's zero saturation in that part of the image, like let's assume that this black keyboard or just like this, let's assume this wall was just a perfectly neutral gray. If you increase saturation and lift, it's going to try to move that saturation, and there's no saturation there to begin with, so it just breaks. Same with offset, because offset moves 0 too. Now, you can still move the value part of it, though. because the value is just moving the luminance of it. Now, again, you might get a little bit of breakage in it too, so I would still probably use the regular lift, but
Okay.
it's something you can do. Like if you wanted to just like dress your blacks a little bit, you could do that. But again, it's not the primary use case for it. But it is an option if available. One thing I like doing with HSV sometimes, if there's like some shine on the face, one thing I'll do is I'll actually go to the qualifier and then just like highlight just the luminance, only the luminance, and I'll soften it some. And then one thing now that I can do that's only selecting those is I'll reduce saturation and my luminance here, and then increase it in my gamma for both. So I kind of fill in those colors a little bit more. But now, if I go before and after, it kind of removes some of that shine a little bit.
You're a wizard, Tim. Oh, I am the king of oily face shine. So
Yeah,
that is
it's a
the
nice,
thing to
nice
know.
little fun trick. So that is a use case for actually using the blue values for, especially on both gain and gamma in HSV.
Okay. These are good comms. Okay.
So reset that. Okay. Now let's see. What was the? I think I've been using HSV wrong. Uh-oh. Tell me about it, sleeves.
I've
All
definitely
right.
been
What
using it
was?
wrong.
Okay. There was something I really wanted. Oh, right. Okay. Now I know what it was. Um, so we know that saturation is our green channel, right, in HSV. So you know how we were kind of creating our own saturation curve with gamma, and GAN. Wow, gain and gamma. You can do the same thing in custom curves. Unlink the stuff here, and then just go to the green curve, and then this is your gain. The top end, if you move it like this is your gain. So you can do this, and then you can customize your gamma curve here. Move it like this. And then this would be your lift, which is why we don't touch it. So you just create a custom saturation curve here. So you can really crush down your highest end. Yep.
So if you were to do, okay, so here's a follow-up question to that. On your HSV node, let's say you do a curve like you have there. For the HSL, if you want to balance that, is it flipped? Or is it the similar curve?
To be honest, I have never tried that.
Well, today's the day.
We're gonna try it. I'm actually curious about this. So I'm gonna reset the curve here, and let's just say I do this, and then in here, I mean, it's basically that, but I'm wondering if I can copy the curve and paste it here, use HSL, and then can I invert it is the question.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. It doesn't do what I think it's supposed to do. Huh.
I'm also curious if like you created a curve, if you would need to change the direction of the curve. So like if you had a C curve, if you need to make it like a U curve on one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, not necessarily. I mean, so like if I just did it manually, because essentially what I was trying to do is trying to see if there was a way to invert this so that whatever this is, it would be the opposite result on HSL, but it's not really a good way to do that. But if you just do it manually, you can totally do it that same way.
Huh?
But yeah. So like I could really reduce the body of it, but keep some of the higher saturations in an HSL. I gotta relabel this, like copy paste, and then just like really push that density right now. But yeah, this is something you can have a lot of fun with. um, and play with saturation curves.
Is there an invert node for color? Yes, but it's not. It's
It's
not
not.
like an invert property. It would.
Yeah, it's like an invert mask, not an invert like do the opposite of what this node is doing.
Yeah.
And
See,
I'm actually about to talk about that one too.
Axe an After Effects user, so you don't have to respond to him if you don't want to.
Yeah. So I'll never respond to him again. But yeah, so we can, I mean, yeah, so curves can be a really fun way to really shape how you want these saturations to move and your density. Because in reality, because we're playing HSL and HSV together, these are also density adjustments. Joke's on you, our invert effect has that built in. You're funny. Okay.
Yeah, I
I mean,
couldn't imagine.
there are invert effects, but not in the traditional way that you're thinking. Like
Yeah,
because if I go to my key output, like I can invert that, but that's not the same type of inversion that you're talking about.
yeah. He's
So
just, I think Act just doesn't quite understand like real grown up editing. So we'll leave him alone over there.
yeah, well, because like the math from like go, let's say I tried to invert this curve, like the math in terms of color isn't like 1-to-1 on either side because it's logarithmic. Why can't I say that? In some respects, especially when you're working with different color spaces. So like the range that you're working with from here to here is different depending on what gamma you're working in. So I missed who I was with Vibe B. The Vibe B going to be on YouTube on both of our channels. I think you're planning on actually doing a cut down of this, right?
Probably not this go around. Because the main reason why I did it last time was so that it could exist on my YouTube. So now that I'm actually, hopefully, I'm still live on YouTube. I'll just have the live stream up.
Okay. Fair
I mean,
enough.
I can do a cut down depending on how.
It would mostly just be cutting out the beginning, really.
Yeah, the problem is that my PC can't record and stream at the same time. So like I'd have to download a VOD to edit it, which is what I did last time, and it's fine. But
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well,
yeah,
we'll discuss that off stream.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. So overall saturation, really, really nice way to do multiple things. You have your gain and gamma, HSL, HHV, and you have your custom curves to really shape saturation in a lot of different ways. So, with those out of the way, there's also what's called the layer mixer. I'm not really going to talk about this one that much because I don't want to say there's not much of a use case for it, but a layer mixer is like, if you're familiar with composite modes, that's what these are for. So you compare, the bottom one takes priority over the top. So if you're familiar with how you like blend with screen, overlay, luminosity, color, and stuff, that's what you would use this for. But nodes also have composite modes built into them. So if you're not doing anything where you're like comparing two completely different images, then you can just use your composite modes. And basically what that means is, like, let's say I always struggle with coming up with a really good example for this.
What if you wanted like a soft glow or like a
actually, I know exactly how to do this. Well, glow is a whole nother thing. But let's just say I'm just going to crank contrast a little bit. Let me just turn off this one and I'll just move my contrast.
There's contrast.
Yeah, there's two things that happen with contrast. One, your luminance changes in clips, and your color changes, because contrast will increase your contrast in color too, not just your luminance. That's why the contrast in here is different than the HDR wheel contrast. So if I increase this, your saturation for the most part doesn't change. But let's just do the composite mode example. So let's say I increase contrast here. And I get that to kind of a decent look here, but maybe I don't want to keep the color adjustment. I just want the regular contrast. I could right click on the node, go to composite mode, and then click luminosity. Now it's only keeping the luminance changes of this contrast and not the saturation changes. Or if I wanted to only keep the color contrast and not adjust the actual luminance contrast, I could change composite mode to color. And now we're only getting the contrast in color as opposed to the luminance. So that's a use case for composite modes that you can utilize if you want to. So, or I like using the luminosity one because I can sometimes change. What was it that I did last time? Shoot, I don't remember the example I used last time, but just know that there's fun things you can do with it. Again, I don't use them all that frequently, but they do have some special use cases. Now, we'll talk about outside nodes, and usually outside nodes I place at the end of my initial clip node tree, and I almost never use outside nodes in groups because they're usually shot specific. So if I go to a power window and start like adding a mask or something, like let's say I want to have him pop or something, like I can just make a basic power window here. And again, we're for those that don't know, a power window is basically just a mask that has like easy feathering controls, and you can move it around, and you can also track it to your subject. So if the subject moves at all, he doesn't really move in this instance, but the power window will move with him if it needs to. So we don't need to keep this tracking data. I was just showing what it can do. But now an outside node will actually do the opposite of what's in here, or will mask the opposite of this. So if we right click on our node, we go to add node, add outside. Now this one is doing everything outside of that circle. So this one is happening on the inside. Let me just turn this off. So this one's happening on the inside of that mask. This one's happening on the outside of that mask.
Oh. Huh. It's kind of like a quick way to set up like a masked corrector.
Yeah, it's like you could do vignettes with this. You can just like allow your subject to pop out a little bit more. So if I do a before and after here, like if you were just looking at this image, you would think it was just more light on you. So this is a really quick and dirty and easy way to kind of relight stuff. So like this is before, where there's all this other stuff here, and this is after. Your face kind of pops out a little bit more and keeps this other stuff less distracting. So this can be a good way to like pop out your subject. So that's a big part of outside nodes. These also work with qualifiers as well. So if you do a qualifier adjustment, you can basically have the opposite selection of your qualifier in the outside node. Now, I don't normally do that because I don't like using qualifiers as much as possible because they can break pretty easily. But that's an option if you want.
Okay.
Okay. So with all that said, now the idea of building out a node tree isn't necessarily to copy exactly what I'm doing, of course. The purpose of building out a node tree is to say, like, okay, with the type of work that I'm doing, what is my most common workflow? So in my case, I'm going to pull up my most used clip template. So this is the node tree that I normally use. And a lot of times I'm not going to use all of my nodes, but in this way, like I basically add a node if there's a use case that I run into a decent amount, that like, okay, I could see myself needing to use these nodes at any given point. But it also allows me to have consistency across all clips. So if I highlight all of my clips here, I can apply this clip template to every single one of them. And so now I can go to each one. And the great thing about working this way, especially if you have different clips here, is because they all have the same IDs, the same naming conventions, the same everything. Let's say I go to this clip. I'll pull up my clips tab so you can see it. So the first thing I want to do is I need to increase exposure on this one. Okay, done. Next clip. Okay, I need to decrease exposure on this one. Okay, done. Go to the next clip. I need to move exposure maybe a little bit. Done. Go to the next clip, move exposure. And I basically just do that through all my clips that need adjusting once I do all the color management stuff. And then I can go back. Okay, let's go to the balance node. There's stuff that needs balancing here. Okay, let's go to here, balance that. Good. Let's go to here, balance this. Right around there. Good. Let's go to here, balance this. Well, this one's still in log, but you get the idea. So you just you set up a workflow where you keep trucking through like that, and now you have stuff that's like balanced. You're running through your clips, and then you can go back, and then I have my my contrast and primary is actually like after my HSV HSL. That's just a weird quirk of my workflow. You don't necessarily have to do it like that, but this is a great way to like consistently go through all of your clips really quickly and get stuff done as fast as possible instead of like switching back and forth. Because the one thing that people might not realize, by default, whatever node you have selected, when you go to the next or previous clip, it'll keep that same node number highlighted. Mm-hmm. So so you can go through and just like really quickly work all of your clips for exposure. Okay, exposure is done for every single clip. Great, let's work on white balance. Okay, white balance every single clip. And then boom, 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 done. And then, you can go through and do a contrast for all your clips. Boom, 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 done. So the idea is that the reason we have node trees is like you do your primary adjustments really quickly through all of them, and then that way you can just look at all your clips and say, okay, and this is the lightbox, by the way. If you click on lightbox, it shows you just all of your clips, and then you can compare and contrast and say, okay, which clips need special attention here, which clips need adjusting. And I also have this really nifty tool. You can place this on the timeline level, actually. And this is actually a DCTL I have. But I can go in here and there's one, I think there's a free one that Pixel Tools came out. Let me see if this, let's see, do skin checker. Is that going to do it? Yes. Okay. So you can do something like this where you can place a skin checker on your footage, go to Lightbox, and give it a second to load. Usually it pops up. Maybe it'll load. It doesn't like doing this while I'm streaming. Okay.
That's okay.
Well, you're not going to do that. So I'll just do it on, let's just do it on a group shared level because I don't use stuff in the timeline anyways. So we'll put the DCTL here, and then let's just go ahead and do that again. Pixel
After
tools.
this, what was that primaries node you had set up there?
Oh, that was just, I named that. That's the same one as the contrast one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just call it primaries because that's what makes sense to me. But primaries and contrast are the same thing for me.
Okay.
Okay. So, let me just copy this to other groups here so that we can see it here. Okay. So hypothetically speaking, you set this up as a shared node and you place them in all of your groups, blah, blah, blah. But that way, if you go to your Lightbox, you have a really quick overview of where all of your skin tones are at. You can go in and check your exposure. So you can check false color for all of them and see where's exposure at for all of them. So adding a tool like this can make it very, very easy to see where everything is oh, okay, I didn't notice on that one clip my exposure was a little off, or my skin tones don't match the rest of them. And this is a free tool.
Ooh, okay. What's it called?
It's by Pixel Tools. It's called Checkers Basic.
Checkers Basic.
Yes. This is a studio only feature because it is a DCTL, but it is a free tool. I actually don't use this one because I have a different one from mononodes. This one's not free, but essentially it does the same thing where I'm looking at skin tones and seeing where things are landing. So I see there's some magenta here. There's some green on his face over here. So let me go to this clip and let me fix that balance here. Let's shift that over.
Whoa.
And then now I can look at it. Okay, these look like they're matching now, and I can compare with other clips as well. So, so monitoring tools are huge because again, you have the ability to see your false color. Okay, this looks like it's exposed where it should be. You have your skin tone indicator. Like this is yellow is where skin tone looks good. Oh, this actually does need to be here. There, that looks better. So this is where your skin tone should be. Do you have your 2 red or 2 magenta really? And then 2 yellow for what is, labeled here. And a lot of times if your skin vector is very thin, or there's a lot of variance in color, like it's fine if they skim out a little bit to both sides. But this just gives you a really easy way to see all of it at once, and you can check your white balance. You can check your green magenta, or your middle gray, actually, not green magenta. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So where are we at in terms of like overall coloring workflow? For you, you have this master template that you use and go through and do. You start out doing the things that we talked about. So setting exposure, getting balance right, contrast, saturation. From there, where does your head go, and what is like the next thought process of, okay, now that I have, would you call that like this part of the coloring process is like the color correction process?
Yes, when it comes to especially exposure and balance, those are purely correction.
Okay.
The contrast is kind of a mixture of the two. I would say it's more grade, but the only reason I do consider as part of the correction process and why I do it so early is because I want there to be a consistency in all of the cameras in terms of how they look, especially if I'm using different ones, because contrast ratios can be different. So I want to balance my contrast between all the clips if possible. Now, in some cases, I am working under a look. So workflow wise, if I'm doing something that does have an implied look, so let's just say that we do have one here. I'll save this as a shared node. We'll call this look. And this can be a LUT. This can be a different tool. I'll just use a DCTL here. And let's say,
Just a quick reminder for people as well. If you missed the last stream, the DCTLs are user created tools. It's kind of like the equivalent for me that makes sense is it's like a macro in Fusion or a fuse in Fusion, but color page.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, let's say I'm working under a look. So let's say I have a split tone here, and looks again are usually either subtle or won't break the image. So, let's say I have a split tone look here, so it adds a little bit of warmth to my highlights, a little bit of coolness to my shadows here. So usually I'll do this first if I have a balanced image to work off of. So I'll use something as like my master shot, and then make sure the look is applied. And once I get that look to where it should be, I make sure that look is applied to everything. So let me just go ahead and move this over. Actually, I need to delete this one because it's not a shared node. So let me add the look node here. Again, unlock it. Just place this on here because this is a DaVinci Wide Gamut one. But yeah, so I place this look on each of the groups that need it once I have the look kind of in place from the balance shot. So this is what I do first after I, color manage everything. That's when I start going into the correction process. And then, did I add something to this? Oh, I never put the the F-log one here. That's funny. Let's just make it look correct.
Bougie.
Bougie. Okay. And then obviously the exposure is not like that. Let's just bring it down. Okay. So actually, if we start by this, that's fine. So let's just determine okay, so we have our look in place. We need to actually balance the image. So first thing I do, again, go to the exposure. And again, this is called grading under the look because we have the look applied. And we're just basing it off of what that look looks like, and I'm not trying to change the look. I'm just trying to correct so that everything is balanced. And then I'll go into my primaries. I'll do quick lift gamma gain here.
So before you balance the image, if you have a look that is being applied, you should apply the look and then go back and correct.
Usually, yes. Usually, the look will be applied first, because the issue becomes if you don't apply the look first, and then you try to balance based on what the image normally looks like. So, let's say I wanted to actually like put this here. Maybe that'll work for the look, and then I apply the look, and it's like, oh, that's way too much cyane stuff. Oh, I need to go back and rebalance this again.
Okay.
So you apply the look first and then grade underneath it. That's the whole purpose of like grading underneath the look. That's why look development comes first, because you want to get something the look that you know you want to apply to all of your footage. You put that on first, whether that's 1 node, 5 nodes, whatever that may be. So at least it's not something that's not breaking the image. Once you complete that aspect, then you balance for that so that your look is still applied and you're not really doing any. This isn't a grading part of the process. This is just making sure the footage will fit with that look, and then you can adjust your contrast ratio for it. And
so
yeah,
to take a step back, then, if you don't already have a look, let's say I'm developing my look from scratch, is that what you're saying, where you pick a master shot, do the correction process, then do the look, and then apply the look to all of the footage, and then go back and reverse engineer the correction?
It's not necessarily reverse engineering the correction. That's kind of the way to think about it. But like, let's just say these are the only 3 shots I have because this is an interview, right?
Okay.
So I'm just going to ignore that these ones exist. So let's just go ahead and I'll just make these a new group, interview, blah, blah, blah. So let's just assume that these were all I had. I'm going to go ahead and this is actually, I remapped this to Rec 709, so we'll just put this into Rec 709, Gamma 2 Fur, DaVinci 1 Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate. I'm actually not going to use that on the output. I'll use a DCTL, and I have a different display rendering transform for that. So this is also why I don't like using the project-based color management, because it doesn't really allow you to use customized display transforms. So basically, this is taking the place of a color space transform. So it's still taking it from DaVinci 1 Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. But we also have control over like different parameters on how it does the actual transform. So we can, rotate hues for red, green, and blue. We can adjust the highlight specifically, and we can adjust the purity, which is basically the saturation of the hues as well, or the color channels. So it's a really nice tool, and it already kind of implies a specific look, and I actually really like how this handles color. This actually does look different than if you were to do a normal CST. Colin Kelly actually does a really good video on this. But anyways, that aside, so we'll go ahead and just put another look on here. Let's just do, let me create my own split tone. Why not? Let's just do a split tone, DCTL. This one's a paid one, but this will still like give you kind of the same idea. So
at this stage, this clip still has no corrections on it?
This is no corrections, yeah. I'm just implying a look that I know I want to imply onto this image. So something like that, and then bring this down here, probably like, I don't know, 0.25, yeah, like that. Do that, and then bring this down to like 125. So this is just a basic, very basic split tone effect. So if I zoom in on the image, like that's what it's doing, and it's not breaking the image. It's being subtle enough, but it's doing what I want it to do. So I've created that look. Okay, that looks pretty good. I can also apply a basic contrast as well. Again, you want to be subtle with these. You don't want to do something really crunchy, because if a clip doesn't work with it, it won't work. But let's just say I want to, again, this is a very basic one, but I'll just do simple low contrast here. And this is a part of the look. So we have 2 things here. If we look at our image here, it's definitely not breaking anything in the image. And this is what I want to apply to all of our clips. So now that we've done that, now we can go to our different corrections here. Let's just start with the main one. So this is the master one here. Exposure looks a little low, so let's go ahead and bring this up. So maybe not that high. Maybe just like there. That's good. Then we'll go to our balance. And I could go and adjust exposure for each one, but this is just to show like one clip example here. So I want to do this, make sure the skin tone's good. And then, this is also when I use my tool to check the balance to make sure that my skin tones are correct as well. So these look pretty good. It's fine if some of the red is showing. That is fine. So I'll just remove that for now. So now we'll go to my primaries and then just go to the waveform here. I'll just do this. Really fiddle with this contrast ratio here. That looks a little bit better. And then we can do some HSL, HSV stuff. Maybe give it a little more color, maybe not quite that much. So before and after, again, subtle adjustment. And then if there's anything else I want to adjust, then I have like different tools for shifting different things. So let's say some of the yellows might be a little bit too punchy, so I can decrease saturation in some of the yellow areas and then add some density so they're not like super distracting. So again,
if you didn't have this DCTL, I feel like I remember you mentioning this before, but do you not recommend using the hue curves?
I typically don't. Color slice can work, but the skin vector is what kind of throws it off for me. Just because skin is not actually a color vector, and I wish there was a way to just tell it to disable the skin if you wanted to, because it makes red and yellow too narrow. This can work, but not a huge fan. If you have DCTLs available, like if you're running Studio, I would highly recommend the Tetra Interp HSV. It'll do basically the same thing that this one is doing that I have here. It may seem like kind of overwhelming and hard to read, but it's essentially doing the same thing, except when it says red value or green value, this can also be interpreted as density. You just have to subtract it. It's the same. It's literally the same exact adjustment. This one is a free DCTL. So
what would be the alternative, though, if you don't have DCTLs for what you're doing?
Right. If you don't have the DCTL, then color slice is probably going to be the closest tool. The chroma warp chroma warp is not the best for this type of thing, but it can work. Other things you can use are something like the RGB mixer. This one is a whole can of worms in of itself. You could do like a course on the RGB mixer. That one's really dense. But like for split toning, I actually really enjoy using curves. So let's say I didn't have these applied. You can still use custom curves as a split tone. So instead of doing it with this tool that I had right here, I could just unlink this, and let's say I wanted to do something very similar to that like orange and teal style thing. Well, in order to get that, the way to get orange is either by adding red and green together, because red and green, there's orange is in between those. So and it's closer to red, so you would add more red, or you could subtract blue. So we can do that here. Subtract blue and a little bit of green. You get those orange highlights there, and then you subtract red in the shadows and subtract green in the shadows a little bit to get the cyan look. And then this is typically where you would like bind middle points as well. Whoops. So, oh my word. No, I want to select red. Thank you. Goodness. You goober. So this one's a pretty strong one, but you can see like this is still giving us our split tone effect. Now, usually you would want to pin middle gray for something like this. I just did this really quick. But this is like an alternative for split toning. You can use custom curves. And an alternative for doing this type of density adjustment, like let's say I wanted to fix my yellows, I could go in and use the color slice. So I could go in like decrease saturation and increase density. And that's still giving us a relatively similar result. So, we're looking at some of the yellows up here, trying to decrease those to make them less attracting. There's some poppy yellows on his shirt that might look a little weird, so I just, mute those a little bit. So, but again,
why don't you like using the curves? Is it just the lack of precision?
Yeah.
Okay. Sleaze asks, what about the split tone node?
What about the split tone node? Oh,
the
he's talking about the OFX. I don't like it.
There you go.
The split tone node can work, but it's you have even less control over it. Like these are all the options you get. You can't really separate your how much hue and different. I mean, you can to a certain degree, but I can't see like where this is going. So it's just a lot less like I don't have any control of the red, green, and blue values directly. I just have to like shift my hue and hope it's going where I want it to. So it's a lot less visibility. So, and it's not a bad node. It's just I don't necessarily prefer how it works. The good thing about it though is you can set your middle gray pivot point with it. So if you're working in DaVinci by Gamut, you could use 0.336, and now you're adjusting split tone from middle gray. Again, the confusing part is like, how do you know your hue is actually going where you want? So, you could use your vector scope and like switch it over here and then push strength and then hue up here. So you can kind of do something like that, but again, it's weird.
Okay. I got you. So we're about, I think we're at the 2 hour point since we've actually started. How are you feeling about where we're at in terms of coloring? Are there some other things that you feel like are really important to talk about in terms of your workflow?
In terms of mine, let's see, before I get to that, let's see if there's any questions, like outside of the split tone node, of course. Because the thing we didn't really, I mean, I touched on them a bit here, are DCTLs, but also just like other effects here that you can use, or any type of special effects. Is there any questions on any of this stuff before I kind of go into the closing?
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody has questions, feel free to ask Tim. I'd like to show you what I had before this, because I did attempt to grade this image here of me, because I have a recorded video. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna grab a still of this, and this is like I tried to follow along with what you were doing, and I feel like it came out okay. I think it looks fine. I think it definitely looks natural. Like it doesn't look weird or artificial or anything like that. I'll open my project. I tried to take what you had taught us in the first session, and Tim, it was not good. That's what I'll say. Here we are.
Oh boy. Here, boy.
Here we are.
I'll give you that you created a look.
It's definitely stylized.
Hey, I mean, the skin tones aren't bad.
So, like, the things that I was struggling with are, I mean, I can hop into the color page on this, is that, like, it's this one, right? So, or is this not going to, I guess I can just enable them one at a time. Right? Yeah. Okay. So, death row type look. So, I started, I took one of your node trees, I think, from a stream and did my best to like follow along. So, this is where I started with in terms of exposure. And then balance. What is it? Oh, and I even took your DCTL.
Oh yeah.
So is from here, I think this is where I really goofed is the balance. Because just like if I were to
because you're moving your offset around.
That looks like it's definitely it. Because I don't know if do I have linear? I do have linear on. So this is where I think I really struggle because I felt like exposure is mostly fine-ish.
Yeah.
But then when I got to the balance, I could not get this to look any kind of normal.
Yeah.
So then I went down like a giant rabbit hole of trying to figure out how the hell to bring this back to some sense of normalcy. And then what I ended up doing was just blurring the piss out of everything and then just just put everything in the shadows. So I wonder if I were to just go back here and even just rectify this so that it's more balanced. So again, linear. Somewhere around here. Would you say at this stage?
Do you have something else going on in your group? Oh wait, is there anything happening in your like groups or other things?
No group. Because I just had the one recording. Okay. Looks great to you. Well, I'm glad somebody likes it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so in an instance like this where you're basically starting with a really overly crunched image, you still want to get your like. I guess a key part of it is you want to get your image to like obviously as close to normal as possible. Oh wait, is there tone wait, hold on, go to the CST in again. Oh no, the tone map is on. Never mind. Okay, so you do want to get your exposure and balance to like as close to normal as possible, but also keeping in mind that if you are working with a clip that is like very overcooked, sometimes you're not going to get there by just exposure and balance. Sometimes you can, like in this instance, I think we were able to get there to some degree. And that's just like with making sure the overall exposure of the image is entirely balanced. Obviously skin tones are priority, but you want to make sure that the rest of the image isn't getting cooked. And then in your balance, we're basically just trying to center up anything while keeping the skin tones on the line, so that we're not like pushing it way too far and making everything super cyan.
Also,
I guess, but again, the other thing is like because when you're tagging the gammas to linear, if your project settings aren't set to DaVinci Web Gamma Intermediate, then linear will not work.
Oh, dude, I wonder. I didn't have it set to.
And if your timeline, because if your timeline's overriding the settings, that'll also trigger it too.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if this is the problem, and I'm just again a meatball. Color. Oh my gosh, dude. I hate being a meatball, man. So my project settings were just super screwed up.
That's the one thing that gets
oh my gosh, man. Damn it, dude.
so yeah, that's how to fix that.
I mean, it's
all right. Kyrie's. Oh, go ahead.
That makes so much work because I spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to figure out how to get this to some semblance of normalcy. And I was like, dude, I have things on linear. I'm adjusting the gain. And that's where I think I went to the offset because I was like, dude, screw this. Like the gain's not working. I'm going into offset land. And then it just was bad. All right.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Dang.
Okay. Well, before I get to Kyrie's question, there was who asked it? Oh, Ack actually asked it. How do you go about adding and adjusting diffusion? There's a couple ways to do that. Now, depending on what you mean by diffusion, like you can also consider that halation. But if you're not talking about halation, I'll just do it on this node here. There's the effect called the color tone diffuser, which you can basically soften. Wow. You can soften part of your image and kind of like decrease your resolution here. So this is one way you can do it by and get like some sort of like softer, creamier looks. The color tone diffuse, but again, this is a studio only effect. So if you weren't to do that, I mean, you could even add. Oh, this would be interesting. I'm curious about this. You can add some blur, of course. Now you can change the type of blur that you're using. But if you blur and then, I want to try this on the composite mode. Will this work? Or not the luminosity color. Yeah, this is a little bit of a weird way of doing it. But if you wanted to like kind of have colors bleed out, you can set your composite mode to color and then increase your blur. And this is actually, funny enough, this is a way to reduce chroma noise in the free version. You can do this. If you have a clip that has a lot of chroma noise, this is what you would do. You would set your composite mode to color and then increase your blur. Because that's basically what noise reduction is, it's just blur. But you can see like if you increase your radius with that on, you can have colors bleed through like this. You could also make this a parallel node. And then on the bottom, change this one to luminosity. And then you can blur the details a little bit and kind of diffuse this way. And this one you would want to be much more subtle on, of course. But you can also like diffuse, you can qualify it so that it only diffuses the brighter areas too. So if I highlight this and only diffuse my higher areas and kind of soften that a little bit. So now if I increase my blur in here, now you want to probably not go crazy with this, but you can just blur those just a bit to get that little bit of a glowy effect. There's also a template node that I found from a guy named JewWorks that does a really interesting halation node. And halation is basically the effect of like, have you ever seen films where you have that like red and sometimes slightly yellowish outline? It actually has to do with how light hits a film base and then bounces back and then spreads into red, green, and blue film strips. Or not film strips, but yeah, you can that's where the halation comes from. But if I go to my halation here, I customize this for DaVinci Wide Gamut specifically. It's like getting his eye, which is hilarious.
Cat's eye.
But yeah. But basically this will, it's probably not a great example because there's not really many light sources. So if I go to this one,
my footage is bad.
Well, it's not a good example. You're not being a good example to the kids. But if I throw this on here, now we start to get like this is before and after, so you can kind of get that little diffusion, and this also allows you to like customize how strong you want the halation, which this would be pretty extreme, but this basically simulates that effect. And this is a free download if you go to JewWorks page. He has a video on it as well, but that's one way you can. There's a couple of ways you can add diffusion. There is additional ways. There's ways you can like add soft glow. There's other templates that other people have created for it, but those are some ways to do it. And then Kyrie had a question: is there a reason to go this hard on color correction if I record on Canon M50 and 1080p only for YouTube? Yeah, of course. I mean, the thing is like once you have all of this template stuff set up, And again, you don't. I would not recommend copying mine. I would recommend doing what works best for your specific workflow. Um, but once you have your thing in place to where like, okay, I'm put all the nodes in place that I have commonly used, and you can always go back and refine it if you find you're having to do more things than your tree allows, and that's usually when I add new nodes. But once you have this in place, you set up for all of your clips, and then all of a sudden you can just run through, do all of your stuff really quick, and sometimes I even if it's all just the same shot, you could do everything inside of a group node, and then that way. Like for some of my YouTube videos, like just on my webcam, I'll just do all of this stuff in the group because I'm only making one change. So you can just do it once and then be done.
I think the thing that is a bit intimidating for this workflow is just getting comfortable with the idea of existing inside the DaVinci space. And I feel like it's kind of like for me too. So like the last time we did this was like very intimidating, but even after just doing it like once or twice, it's very quick. It's not
Yes.
like when I go to, especially if your setup is the same every single time, like your camera is positioned the same way, your lights set up the exact same way, like it's one and done. And I feel like, I mean, you guys just saw it makes an incredible difference in image quality. Like
Yeah.
if you go through doing it once, it just like, yeah, it looks 400 times better than trying to just like cram up the saturation slider and then crank in your S curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then I'll show you exactly what that process looks like. So if I go to this video right here as an example, this was when I made the video about ProRes RAW. So I'm just going to disable this and disable that. Okay. So I have all of these clips right here. Every single one of these is perfectly identical. So what I can do, if I just like completely nuked all of these, so let's just go reset all nodes, Okay. So every single one of these is grouped. So I only need to do one different type of adjustment, and I already have this all saved as a template. So if I go to my gallery and I have my pre saved, so I can just go my pre, and there's 3 nodes here. Don't worry about the 3. I have a very weird specific workflow I need to do because of certain OBS recording stuff. So usually this is just 1 node, but I have it set to 3 for a specific thing. But then I can go to post, hit this, and then now I'm done. Color's done for the entire video.
Yeah. 2 seconds.
That's why. So it's like, and the other thing I recommend really quick, sorry not to cut you off.
No, you're good.
The other thing I recommend is like, don't go crazy with setting up this type of node tree first. What I highly recommend you do, start with 3 nodes. Start your whole entire node tree process with your exposure, your white balance, or just your balance, and your contrast. Just use those 3. If you want to, you can do the whole saturation thing, but I would recommend just staying with these 3 just to start. If you need to do some saturation stuff, go ahead. But this, you set your exposure to linear, set your balance to linear, make sure balance loom mix is off. And now you have your node tree right here that will do 90+% of what you would need to do in most cases. Start with those 3, and then once you get used to that workflow, and you're like, okay, I find myself needing to go into HSV and creating some sort of saturation curve. I just need to go and do that. Okay, let's add HSV to your HEV, but let's just add that to your power grade, so you can just throw this in here, and this is my 4 node template. and you just keep building it until, because like once you get used to your workflow in here, and then you find yourself like, okay, I need to do this one extra thing usually, that really helps my image, or I want to imply this look, or I want to do such and such a thing. You just add that to your node tree, and maybe you don't have to use it. You don't have to use it every time. You don't have to use all like in this scenario, I don't have to use all of these nodes every time. I can just use whatever I need, but at least I know the option is there to use it. So that the long-winded answer to the question of like, why would I need? Is there a reason to go this hard in like a Canon M50 with basic stuff? Like, if it's as simple as what I just did, then yeah, absolutely, it can definitely benefit you.
That's the camera I have as well. I have a Canon. Actually, no, I have the EOS. Never mind.
Is the monitor calibration important for doing all those wide gamut? Well, monitor calibration is important regardless. Just because the monitor calibration isn't going to allow you to see like the actual HDR and DaVinci wide gamut spaces. Those are just the spaces that we work in. It's more for the fact that when you get to your final delivery, a monitor calibration will allow you to see colors at least somewhat more accurately, so you're not seeing these weird shifts from monitor to monitor. You'll actually have some sort of consistency. Like cheap monitors will never get you to 100% of the place, which is why we use our scopes to determine like, okay, is this actually where it should be, or am I just hallucinating? So yeah, hopefully that answers that. Red Giant's Magic Bullet looks, because I'm an AE, I don't have a color page. So the colors are great for me. How do you compare it to DaVinci's color page? I haven't used Magic Bullets or Red Giant stuff personally on for color. I haven't used Red Giant in a long time because I haven't touched AE, and like ideally I never have to touch it. So I mean, Red Giant's a very reputable company though, so I would imagine their looks are probably very well designed, but I can't speak to it directly and give an accurate assessment.
Okay. Yeah. I just think that like the thing that is so like before going through and talking with you about this workflow, like the previous image that I was sharing, this would be where like I would be like, okay, this is good. Like and then you go and you watch it back and you compare it to somebody who knows what they're doing. You're like, oh, I look like a 12-year-old. So like even just getting to a place where like I don't know, like it looks like it was actually shot on a camera is good. Now, mind you, like I think I still need to go and like fix a bunch of these things, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like so incredibly valuable for me, especially because I work with like YouTube folks who aren't going to have production experience, aren't going to have like filming experience, and so yeah, being able to take like bad footage and make it look just somewhat usable is so valuable.
Yeah. And the question is always like, how do I know if I've gotten the right look, or how do I know if I've done enough to the image? And there's unfortunately not actually an answer for that outside of like, and colorists will do this all the time, but they'll go back and look at something they graded like 5 years ago and just like, what was I thinking when I did that? But a really good practical tip that helps me a lot when I'm like, if I've looked at an image for too long and I just can't see real colors anymore, like everything's a dream. A good rule of thumb is when you get to that point, walk away from your computer for a minimum 45 seconds. Once you walk away, come back, and if your image like doesn't give you like a vibe of, oh, I really like the way this looks, start it. I don't want to say start over, but like go back to your original corrections and work from there, or at least like adjusts the stuff that like, immediately uh, jumps out at you. Because when your eyes are able to adjust on something else and like you're actually seeing real things and you come back to your image like, oh, why does my skin look like an Oompa Loompa? Like then it gives you a better perspective on like how to see your stuff. So
Okay.
color isn't real except it is very real. It's oh my goodness, Fally, you hit it the nail on the wood board thing. Yes.
So from here, if you were me, what would be what are some things that like also how do you go full screen in the color page?
You press what's it called? The Control F.
It don't work.
Control
You
F
got
doesn't
better
work. Like
hotkeys than me.
if you select the screen, select the preview window and Control F, that doesn't work.
Nope.
I thought that was default.
It could
Maybe it's
be.
not.
I've messed a bunch with my
There is a way to do, well, like I'll show it on my screen so you can see it. But yeah, if I have my screen selected here, I press Control F. That's what it does.
hold on.
I customize all the hotkeys. I'll see what
Cinema
it is.
viewer.
Let's see. It's Control F. So yeah, it's Cinema Viewer. What is it by default?
Oh, it's still
It
P.
says Control. It's P. Yeah. For mine default, it says Control F and P. What? Why would it be two? I don't understand that. I don't understand that at all. But yeah, that's what it is.
So
and then
what are some
to
things
fit the screen? Like if I sorry, real quick. What if I'm like zoomed in on a clip right here, and I want to get to fit the screen real quick? It's Control Shift X.
Oh, I don't like that.
You can change that one. That one's fine to change. That one's called Zoom Viewer to Fit. Let me make sure that's actually default. That's not something I just like
Oh, I
came
think
up with on the spot.
yeah.
Oh yeah, it's Z. It's Z by default. Yeah, I completely just flubbed that one.
No, I changed mine to Shift Z as well because I have yeah.
Yeah, Z is for other things.
I changed it. Okay.
Yeah.
So what jumps out as you as like nah.
Mostly the color separation. So color separation is one of those things that's like hard to see because it works best when it's not noticed. So color separation has to do with the fact that like your colors don't blend in with each other. Let me see if I can find a good example of this in here. Let me think. Trying to think of the best way to show that with this in particular because I have weird stuff. Okay, so yeah, I'll just show it with this node to make it quick. So for example, like in some of these highlights, I have a lot of red here, and even if I go into the shadows, there's like some red bleeding into the shadows. And what good color separation does is not just straight orange and teal, but it allows colors to or especially in the hair, like the hair has like some of that red and orange fringing as well. What good color separation does is it'll allow the colors to allow the colors to pop by themselves. So, which is why like split toning is often used for this. But if I turn this on, you'll see that like now my skin tone and like my hair or my shirt especially, like if I'll just full screen this. If you look at the difference between like the shirt now where it's like, oh, I now obviously see how red that stuff was, and how the hair was like bleeding into the warm spots as well. If I just cool off my shadows but keep my highlights warm, then you get a nice smooth transition of color and it allows like for things to be isolated and pop a lot more. So especially in like some of these areas as well. So yeah. This is just one node right here, but you see like how different that looks. So like this is before, and then this is after.
Oh, I was muted. Yes. Sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
that's crazy different.
Yeah. So there's a number of ways to do that. Like a quick and the quick and dirty way was that curves example that I showed earlier. You can even do it with lift and gain. So if I go back here, if I just did it with lift and gain, you could shift gain warm, you could move lift low, and again that's like a really quick and dirty way of doing it. But it still can achieve that result. The problem being with gain and lift is that they both touch a little bit of everything, so they're kind of conflicting with each other. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just But this is a way I would create very quick color separation, and I would just pin a point on the curves, ideally middle gray. So, yeah.
Have you explained what middle gray is? Was I not listening?
Maybe I didn't. Okay, middle gray is it's kind of arbitrary, but it's also not. Okay, so middle gray just refers to the point like that. In the most simplest terms, middle gray is the point that separates your highlights from your shadows. So it's like the center gray point. So if I was to, and that's why when I mentioned that pivot thing with the contrast earlier. So if I go into, let me just make a new node here. Because I know what pivot point, and the pivot point for middle gray is different for every single color space or for every single gamut. So like F-log, S-log, DaVinci Wide, or DaVinci Intermediate, and all those other things, they all have different pivot points to where like it separates what's highlight and what's shadow. For DaVinci Wide Gamut specifically, it's 0.336. And this is why I was mentioning, like, if you adjust contrast from middle gray, your exposure doesn't change.
Okay.
So you can see, like, we're adjusting contrast obviously, but it doesn't look like exposure itself is moving. Whereas if I moved my pivot point up here, that's definitely changing exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, middle gray just refers to the point that separates. Again, this is very, very oversimplification, but middle gray refers to the point where that separates highlights from shadows.
When you were first saying middle gray, I thought you were saying metal gray, and then my head went to Metal Greymon from Digimon. I was like, wait, what?
That's incredible.
Hold on. Now I'm invested.
Yeah. That's amazing. So yeah, you can absolutely do this with, let me just pull up a simpler, I'll go back to the other project here. Don't save that. To make this a little bit easier to see, but you can pin the color curves at middle gray as well. So let's just go to, I templatized all of these, didn't I? Let me just reset this one. All right. I'm going to pull up DCTL. And I think there's another free tool here. Is it the exposure chart? Yes. Okay. Perfect. So this actually gives us what our middle gray is. So it just sets that, and then on the next node, I can take the dropper with the curve selected, hit this. Now see how that created a point on our curves. So now I can delete this, and now I can do a custom contrast with middle gray pinned, and I'm going to keep my exposure the same.
Oh. Okay.
And also I can do
slick.
the split toning thing too. So bring down blue and bring down green.
Huh.
And then bring down red and bring down green.
Why don't they have I feel like that needs to be like a pin middle gray button. Because I feel like that's a pretty, it seems weird that you would need to bring up a separate whatever to like.
Yeah, well, here's the good news.
Grab that point.
Here's the good news.
Okay. Or you can create a still.
Yeah. DaVinci Wide Gamut middle gray. So now if I just have a blank canvas here, and I had just put the exposure value contrast. It's not going to work for this clip, of course. But bring this down. So, I have this stuff, but I want to do that split tone effect. Boink, I have the point. So you can do that. And the good thing about this is like you don't necessarily need someone else's DCTL. You can create this and then share it because it's just a still.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, then you can do all your own cool color stuff inside of DaVinci Webcam, and you always have this pinpoint just ready to click and drag, so you don't have to do the DCTL thing every time. Especially if you're on the free version, you can't. But anybody can pin this.
Okay. So, I'm not sure if there's anything else that you wanted to talk through, but one, it might be a good time for you to like catch your breath and take a little bit of a break. But did you still want to? Do you still want to like have somebody share some footage and like walk through grading it with them, or
Does
how much
anybody?
time do you have?
Oh boy. It's it's after 5. Goodness.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too
Um,
much of your evening.
um, does anybody? Well, let's just ask real quick. Does anybody have footage that they want to see? What I would do with it?
Sleeves had mentioned that he had something that he had shot that he'd be willing to share. I don't know if he's still in the stream or not, but he had said he had something.
Gotcha. What we can do is I might do another stream like over the weekend or something. I can just do like, viewers send me their stuff. um, and then I can work with it then. Cause I don't know if we have time to like wait for somebody to pull up footage and send it,
Okay.
but yeah, I think is there anything in regards to like what you want to see out of your footage that is like, how do I know when I've gotten to this point, or is it like, what do you do in this situation? Like, is there anything else that you would like to see?
So for me, a lot of times, like, this is one shot that I have, and so where my head goes is that like this looks way too bright and yellow, so I guess where like I would probably go. So I'll take two steps back. One, I feel like I look too bright, and two, I think I'd probably also want to add some kind of a vignette to help focus in on me a little bit. So I guess I'll just talk through what I
Oh
would do
my
from
goodness.
here, and then you can let me know like good, bad.
Are you seeing
So
this?
what?
I don't know if you can see my stream, but one of my cats is climbing up my acoustic panel.
Oh no, I can't.
Get down. Hey, down.
It's a good
Yeah.
climbing post, man.
Apparently. Well, that's a thing that's happening. Okay. Because I can't do anything about that. Um,
So, if I wanted to correct skin tones, I would go and use the qualifier.
I never use a qualifier for that.
Okay.
You want I start with the balance node
Okay.
because the balance you usually, unless otherwise needed for specific looks, the balance node is where you want to get your skin tones as close as possible to where they need to be.
Okay.
And then you can worry about the background later. So if it's too yellow or too cooked, then you're bringing it towards like blue and green. Because like if it looks too yellow, you're bringing it towards blue. Because the opposite of red is cyan, the opposite of blue is yellow, the opposite of green is magenta. So you're basically like pushing it towards blue, mostly blue and slightly green, and taking a lot of that red stuff out.
See, to me, this still just, I don't know how well it's coming through on your end, but to me, this just does not look great.
And a
So,
part of that is also probably due to the contrast. So if you like, and because it is overcooked in terms of the saturation,
okay.
so I would bring down HSL first.
You would bring down HSL. Okay.
Yeah, so I would bring down HSL like considerably,
Like this?
maybe even more, honestly.
Like it's completely desaturated?
Not entirely, but a lot. Yeah, probably there is good. And then
Okay.
start increasing a little bit, increase it in HSV until
Whoa.
like, yeah. So
Okay.
that might be too much. So I
Yeah.
bring it, but dial it back just a little bit. But then if you highlight both of those nodes and see the before and after,
Jeez. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's one
crazy.
way. That's part of like, you know, control it. That's why I have the parallel node for HSL HSV, because that's like the best way to control your saturation, especially if things are overly cooked. Because not only
Okay.
does it adjust saturation, but you know, when you play HSL HSV against each other, you're going to get density as well.
So from here, so okay, if I'm just trying to think, if I was doing this from scratch and I didn't have you in my ear, start off with, am I doing anything else in here? I don't. Why does this look weird again? Maybe it doesn't. Start with exposure, go to balance, and then I probably, if I got to these two nodes, I would try to continue to crank saturation because this looks flat to me. Is that a bad thought? Like in your
No,
head, are you thinking already like I'll bring back some of the color through contrast?
that is one avenue I will go. Yes, and that's why I will usually go to contrast before I adjust saturation, regardless of whether it's before or after where my contrast node is. I'll usually
Okay.
do contrast first so that the body of the image looks correct. Because if the body of the image fixes that over crank saturation, then I don't really need to adjust saturation as much.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
that's why like the whole broad beats narrow is the most important thing. So you want to do the most broad adjustments first to get your image as close to your end goal as possible. And then that way any of the secondary stuff does less to your image and has a less chance of breaking it. And then you have less things to fix. That's why I always start with exposure, balance, contrast, because those are the three things that'll affect the majority of your image.
Okay.
And then
So as
saturation's kind of secondary to that, but it's also like a major adjustment too.
so from the way my contrast is as now feels way overcooked. Where like it is, do you feel like this is a good place to then go back to adjust
Um,
saturation, or would
I
you?
would what I would do is, so one of my favorite things to do with lift gamma gain is play lift and gamma against each other. So it's almost like you're compressing them down. So I'll bring gamma down and bring lift up, and I'll do it like kind of subtly, but it allows those lower ends and middle to feel a little bit softer while still giving a good body to it. Because right now is like the dark areas are really dark.
Yeah.
And there's it's the contrast is very harsh too. That's just due to the nature of the lighting, and there's a lot of times you can't really fix lighting per se. So that is something that you kind of have to gauge, like how much can I actually do to this because of how it was lit. Like lighting is going to affect it the most for sure.
Okay.
But like if I'm doing that to your image, so if I pull up my screen again here, so if I'm going into my primaries and like, so I have my exposure and balance here. Do I have anything else? I just want to make sure I'm not affecting anything. No. Okay, good. I'm actually going to switch this to that DCTL. Good. All right. So, so I have my exposure. Actually, need to bring this up more. So I have my exposure in place. I have my balance in place here, to where I get something somewhat normalized. And now I'm building the contrast here. Probably bring my gain up a little bit, maybe not that far. But now the gain and or gamma and lift thing, this is like if I'm going back and forth and doing this quickly, I wish I had a track thing to really emphasize this. But like you see how the pushing the gain and lift, or sorry, the gamma and lift against each other really kind of softens that harshness that we're getting in some of
Yeah.
the high contrast areas, especially like down here. You can see like, oh, we have some detail back. This is a little bit softer. And from a wide view, that's what we're getting. So that's why I like bringing gamma down and going lift up, and I'll just keep doing that back and forth until I feel like I've gotten to a reasonable place. And that can kind of help fix it. And then once I've gotten to where my contrast ratio is, then we can start going back into our HSL, HSV, and really start like crafting that overall look and feel.
Yeah. Dang. Okay. Yeah. Now that looks a lot better. So okay. How would you? I guess what I would ask is, what would be with your clip? What else would you be looking to adjust if you were looking to put this on? If you were submitting this to me, I hired you as my editor, my color corrector.
Well, first, if I'm doing something for a client, usually I'll try to figure out like what is the look that you're going for. And sometimes you can come up with like look templates, and trying to make a YouTube video look like the Joker is not a great plan.
Right.
But but having like some sort of palette in place, like, okay, this is the kind of idea or thing that we're striving for, then we go towards that. And then I'll create a look based on that. And then so basically the thing is, like, I think the people make a big mistake in thinking they have to use all of their nodes or have to use all of their things, like, and you absolutely don't. Like, sometimes the fewer nodes that you use, the better. Because again, the more nodes that you use, the more destructive your edit gets. So it's more of like, is there anything glaring at me that like really needs to be adjusted? Is my color separation there? Does my exposure look good? Does my balance look good? Does my contrast look good? If those things are in place, and anything else is just kind of secondary and doesn't really need it. Like, I got my primary stuff where I wanted to. I can like walk away for 45 seconds, come back and be happy with how it looks. So I feel like I've done a good enough job, and it's like, it's never going to look perfect. But it's a matter of like, okay, I need to just get this to a place where it does my adjustment look better than what I started with? And if the answer is yes, then you've done your job.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so let's say I said to you, this is a YouTube video where I'm breaking down. This is an educational video where I'm talking about editing techniques, and I'd like this to feel professional and not cinematic. How would you approach that?
So you want it to look professional but not cinematic, you said?
Yes, I don't want it to feel like, like it's just, like, yeah, I don't want it to have that real deep, contrasty, heavy color look. I like this to feel bright
Just
and
normal.
inviting.
Yeah. The first thing I would say is light it properly.
Well, Tim,
I'm not
here's
talking
the
about you
thing,
specifically.
bud.
I'm just saying, like, have you checked if your camera's in movie mode? Yes, Dennis, I always do. Thank you for that. He's referring to my Discord tag. So goodness. So yeah, so like the first thing I do is like make sure, because the lighting is going to affect it the most.
Okay.
Because the more you can light it properly up front, then the significantly easier it'll be on your correcting end. Because ideally you want to spend less time correcting and more time grading. If you can do that, you're going to get to the end goal a lot quicker. So lighting's important. Setting, obviously in cameras, a proper white balance, exposure is super important. Once those things are in place, then I can just have at it with getting my my colors really bright. So if I wanted to make this like really bright and inviting and less like filmic and moody, I would probably handle it something like, I would just make my contrast ratio a little bit different. Make it pop. Maybe that's a little bit too much. I gotta soften up a little bit more. And this is going to be hard to do because it is a very high contrast image.
Right.
Um, but um, but yeah, maybe I just I keep some of that warmth in the image. So the balance is always a good place to go. If your skin tone's not looking like where it should be, then your balance node is always a great place to kind of refactor and refigure it. So, and you come up with something like this. I realized I was not showing it on camera here. But you take it from this and you go to this, and then sometimes, like if the highlights are a problem, I have a highlight shadow node, which basically means I'm just using the high shadows and highlights option in the primaries. So I can tone down the highlights a little bit. And this is also a textural and spatial adjustment, meaning it's actually trying to retain detail as you bring highlights down. So I would not put this in a parallel node. There's a whole nother reason for that. But
is the color space or gamma adjusted on the highlight shadow node?
No,
Okay.
it's all. I mean, I think you could do it in linear. I just don't like the results as much.
Okay.
So yeah, I use timeline.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's kind of a couple ways I would approach it. And then of course, having those DCTL tools, if you're on the free version with pixel tools, the checkers and exposure, the exposure charge for pinning middle gray, of course, but that checkers one to check your false color to see if your exposure is good, check if your skin tone looks good. Those are, and you can also split the view, so you can actually monitor your skin tone while looking at your original image. I keep forgetting this is actually supposed to be over here. There we go. That's better. So like maybe this is definitely too magenta. So we just move this over. And now I can actually like look at my skin tone a little bit more. And now looking at this, like, oh, that actually does look a little bit better than the skin
Yeah.
tone.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Dang. You're good at your job, sir. You are good at your job.
I enjoy it.
All right. Well, I think we've definitely taken up a good chunk of your evening. I don't know if anybody has any final color questions. Now would probably be a good time to ask. And I don't think it has to necessarily be related to like this particular example or workflow. But if there's ever something that you've been curious about with like the color page, probably now. You had said, Tim, did you want to talk about glow at all? You had kind of made an offhanded comment about it. I don't know if it's worth discussing.
Not really. I mean, glow is basically kind of trying to simulate a diffusion effect. I did kind of show how to do it with those two parallel nodes if you had to do it in the free version, and the color tone diffuser has it as well. Glow is... I never use like a straight up glow effect because it's like too gimmicky and it looks too unrealistic. So I just rely on like either the color tone diffuser or some customized halation effect to get those results. Because essentially what diffusion's doing is softening the image, and it's also allowing lights to have a more smooth glow and roll off as opposed to like harsh white spots on your screen. That's the point of diffusion, really.
Okay. I gotcha. Well, sir, this has been fantastic. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to talk about or cover or do anything?
Not that I'm aware of. If you do have like additional things that like, oh, I forgot to ask this, or if there's this part of my workflow that I would like to nail down and get better at, then I can probably do like a quick follow-up thing for it. But yeah, other than that, I think I covered all I wanted to.
Yeah. Amazing, man. Amazing. I still can't believe I had my timeline in the wrong color space.
I'm glad we went over that.
I'm telling you, I spent so much time just to get, like, I probably spent an entire evening to try to get my footage somewhat usable, and to end up with, oh, dude, it just, It it hurts me to look back at it. It's just it's so
It's
bad.
fun. Yeah. I mean, again, the biggest thing is like start with the 3 nodes, maybe the split HSL, HSV. And because those 4 things, I consider HSL, HSV one thing. Those 4 things are going to be what determine most of like a majority of your grade and your correction, your image. So yeah, start with those 4, get those to get your image as close as to you can to its final. And then anything after that is secondary, like doing color selections, adding masks with the vignettes and stuff. Those are all secondary.
Okay. Bad. Alrighty, sir. Well, I appreciate it.
Yep.
I think we can call it a coloring workshop.
I think so. I think we did okay.
I think we did okay. I think we
All
did
right.
okay. Yeah,
All right.
I seriously appreciate you taking the time to do this with me because it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I keep bouncing back and forth between these 2 pictures and yeah, you saved me a lot of headache. Alrighty, sir. Well, I'll let you close out your stream. I'm gonna
All
hop
right.
out of the Discord and we'll chat. We'll chat later.
Yep. Sounds good. All
All
right. You
right,
have a good one.
man. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. I got to head off because I believe dinner is ready. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions for me, feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know if you like this session. If there's anything you didn't understand, let me know as well. You can also watch the first section to get a much better idea of how the color management side of it worked. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful and informative, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys so much for showing up, and